Hey, peace, family. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 335. It's based on technology. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab today. Also, we do IT mentorship here. So if you're trying to get into IT and you need some mentorship getting in, or you need an IT coach transitioning from one IT role to another, we can provide you with that sort of assistance. Just drop your email after the live stream is over into the comment section and let us know that you would want to be mentored or coached. Also, thank you to all the new subscribers that have stepped up the last 24 hours and even the last few days. We really appreciate your subscriptions to this channel and your contributions when you hit the like button. We had subscriber appreciation day, so to acknowledge you all who definitely support us. All right, let's get into this. Also, if you want to get on the panel, there will be a link in the chat for you to get onto the panel. Once you're in the waiting room, just raise your hand, and then one of us will acknowledge you and we can advance you to the panel. If you don't raise your hand, you're going to be sitting there for a long time. All right, man, let's get it in. All right, first item on the docket is from electrek.co. New Dutch electric moped gets dual batteries and up to 100 miles of range. This should be interesting. This looks pretty dope too. Brekker, a Dutch startup, has just unveiled its first electric vehicle, the Brekker Model B. The electric moped or scooter or noped, seriously, what is this thing? Packs some serious battery capacity into its small frame. Brekker Model B e-model unveiled, the bike's designer created a 1.9 kilowatt battery pack for the Brekker Model B and then left room for up to 2 of the big battery packs. That means the little electric moped can get between 50 to 80 kilometers or 31 to 50 miles of range on a single battery, or twice as much when wielding dual batteries. Those batteries are built from 650 battery cells and weigh in at 10 kilograms, 22 pounds each. They can be charged in 5 hours and come with a 2-year warranty. The batteries are slung low in the battery box, mounted largely, though not entirely, underneath the main aluminum frame members. The seat lifts up to allow for the batteries to be removed for charging indoors. So this is a picture of it from the side angle. While you would be excused for missing it at first glance, the frame actually appears to have a very short rear swing arm. Its suspension consists of dual coil-over shocks running parallel to the main frame member. Combined with the inverted front suspension fork, that gives the Brekker Model B full suspension credentials. The electric moped will also come with GPS functionality and smartphone connectivity, allowing for features such as anti-theft GPS tracking, as well as vehicle diagnostics and remote data. The whole bike only weighs only 62 kilograms, 137 pounds, with a single battery, making it one of the lighter electric mopeds out there. Brecker hasn't shared any info regarding the power rating that rear hub motor of the rear hub motor, but don't expect it to be too high. The Brecker Model B is being offered in two different low speed variants: 25 kilometers an hour, 15 and a half miles an hour, and 45 kilometers an hour, 25 miles per hour. It doesn't take much to power. It doesn't take much power to reach those speeds. And while that many Americans scoff at such low speeds, Europeans will be all too familiar with the low speed requirement for the L1E scooter category that allows riders to operate vehicles like these with only a standard driver's license. The Brecker Model B is designed and assembled in the Netherlands, but it isn't entirely produced there. With some major parts like the battery are built locally, other parts such as the frame are manufactured in Taiwan. For those that are ready to pre-order their own, you can do so just for €9 or 10 US dollars. That will get you a voucher to start configuring your Brecker Model B this December, but you'll still be on the hook for the full price of €3,890 and won't be seeing your electric moped until spring 2020 at earliest. The Brecker Model B will be limited to sales in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany at first, but will expand to other countries according to EMN. This is a very interesting design. I want to take a look at the side profile because this is really set up like a cafe racer, so to speak. Well, not a cafe racer, a bobber. Set up like a bobber. It's actually a really unique design and really interesting. I probably wouldn't mind riding one of these, but I think part of my issue with these electric these e-bikes is that they weigh a lot. They weigh too much for all intents and purposes. And most of the weight is just coming from the battery itself. 137-pound bike is really heavy. I mean, it's not like you're gonna be hopping over sidewalks like Tony Hawk or anything like that. But the problem is, um, once you have that sort of weight, um, transporting it around, like bringing it upstairs and putting it in your basement, or um, trying to traverse inclines and stuff like that, that becomes a problem, especially if the battery dies on you and you have no way to charge it. You got to roll that sucker up a hill, or you got to roll it up an incline. That becomes a problem. I know Complex Design is into micro transportation. This is fits right up, right up the alley of micro transportation. I think it looks pretty dope personally. I like the integration of the rear reflector and tail light on the seat. I think that's pretty dope too. I think that's a nice little touch. I also like the little dashboard here, little display. That looks pretty slick too. I'd be interested in seeing what they do with carbon fiber. What any company for that matter, what they can do with carbon fiber to make the bike lighter. We know that carbon fiber is at least 67 to 70% lighter than aluminum. So even if this is aluminum chassis, if it weighs 137 pounds with the battery, it probably weigh just under 100 pounds, if not less, with a carbon fiber frame. But yeah, micro transportation is here. People are talking. I mean, even the article refers to this, that this is an electric vehicle. So now you're talking about Black people in reference to them. How can they get into the electric vehicle market? Well, here you go, right here, 2 wheels. That's how you start. There's a lot of guys out there who pop wheelies on dirt bikes and stuff like that. This is the perfect opportunity to get into the electric vehicle market and get your company, at least in the United States, to either be subsidized by grants and whatnot from the federal government, or to compete with the big boys. This is the perfect opportunity, especially if you can leverage the labor locally to manufacture a bike. I mean, yeah, it's going to cost some sweat equity, but that's a part of the grind. So I definitely like this bike. It looks pretty slick. Hey, what's going on, Black Shingo?
I'm doing great. No, that bike does look awesome because I mean, about 4 years ago, I was
Maybe
really
he can't
looking
hear
into
me.
e-bikes. Oh, you can't hear me, or can you hear me now?
Oh, he's not there. Okay.
Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
Hmm.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying like no, 4 years ago, I was really looking into e-bikes, and I'm surprised that the market's coming along the way it is. Like I've even been seeing some here in town. The only thing I don't like about this design, you kind of alluded to it earlier, is there's no pedals to it, because like some of the other e-bikes I've seen, like it's either it's an electric kit that's retrofitted to like a pre-existing bicycle, or it's like a
Hmm.
bicycle that's kind of built with the electrical equipment in it, either like as a part of like the mid drive with the pedals, or it's like in the front, it's on the front wheel. But I've
Hmm.
never seen like a moped like this before.
Yeah, I don't even know if you can call it a moped, because it's not motorized, right? I mean, it's not pedaled, right? There's no pedal. But you just call it an e-bike for all intents and purposes. But it would fall in that category. But I definitely think that these are. I think the electric vehicle market now has matured and has gotten to a place where I think we can start creating our own electric vehicles. The variety of designs that we can actually push here, and force our way into this market. I mean, when I look around Black communities across America, I see dirt bikes and all types of things everywhere. Um, scratch my head and saying, yeah, you ride that for fun, but what if we can put that into the what if we can create these sort of electric vehicles, 2-wheel, 3-wheel, whatever, and put that into the hands of the K through 12. When I was younger, we used to ride our bikes to school. We didn't catch the bus. You know what I'm saying? I know before that, the boomers talked about when I was your age. I walked 10 miles to school, back and forth, and through snow, and to a extent, they are right, because there was a busing crisis back then. But I'm saying when we were younger, as Gen Xers, man, we rode our bikes to school. That was nothing. So creating an electric bike, an e-bike, and putting that into the hands of Black boys to get to school, um, actually creates an opportunity creates an opportunity to create a demographic of consumers that are going to buy a Black owned EV, electric vehicle, and sell it to its people.
Yeah, and I'd imagine it's pretty cheap. I mean, what's the research and development cost, do you think?
I'm not really familiar with that in depth. That's something that Complex Design can probably speak to, because he's been involved in the startup sector in karting and electric vehicles for quite some time, so he could probably speak more to that. But for me, um, I would think that you can do the same sort of model like Lyft or Uber, or even like a Netflix subscription, right? You don't really own the bike. You actually are basically using a bike based on a subscription based model.
Oh, so what, like doing like courier type stuff, or just like point A to point B?
It could be a daily. I mean, think about Netflix when they before the streaming became popular. When you had the DVD, you would actually order the DVD, and you would have it for a set amount of time, and then you would put it back in the mail and send it back when you were finished. Well, in this regard to an electric bike, a middle school or even an elementary school fifth grader would not be able to afford something like this wholesale, but they would actually be able to afford $5 a day, right? So you add it up, you do the math, it starts to become profitable after a certain volume is met, a certain metric is met, especially when you start factoring in predominantly Black neighborhoods, where kids have to travel a far distance to get to school sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep. Oh, Complex has his hand up. I don't know why this is doing this. Is not letting me know that people are there. Interesting. Hey, what's going on, Complex? Oh, he's muted. Okay.
Wait, hey, Mike, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, dude.
Crap, dude, I got mic problems again.
Nah. I think Zoom is having some issues.
Okay. I just wanted to answer a couple of Black Shingo's questions about the e-bike sector and stuff. If you want to check out some of what I'm involved with, man, check out BM, so like boy, Mary, ebikes.com, BM ebikes. We make all like mid-drive electric like bikes, any kind of bike, like mountain bike, cargo bike, messenger bike, recumbent bike, whatever. We fit mid-drive electric systems to traditional bike setups so that you can leverage the chain sprocket mechanism on the bike. That's the quickest and easiest way to electrify a bike, basically. And then from there, you can do all of the basic using a certain software stack or type of software stack. You can do exactly what Mike was talking about. Have like people where you can rent them per hour, per week, per day. In all openness, that's actually what I do. Myself, Anti-Gravity, we have a company, and we do that with electric scooters and electric bikes as well. It's all app based. It's all cloud based. So that is the future. And honestly, I think a lot of kids can build electric bikes easily because it's a kit. It's a kit that you're adapting a kit to an already made bike.
Hey, Complex, your mic is starting to break up a lot, so I sent you the email with the dial-in number if that's going to work out better for you.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right.
Yeah, man. Cool. Thanks.
Yep.
No, I'm looking at the website right now. That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, Complex has been doing this for a while now, so he's more of a SME on this. Let me get to the next article. This one is from TechCrunch.com. Waymo to customers. Completely driverless Waymo cars are on the way. You see a driverless Waymo vehicle floating down the road. Waymo, the autonomous vehicle business under Alphabet, sent an email to customers of its ride-hailing app that their next trip might not have a human safety driver behind the wheel, according to a copy of the email that was posted on the subreddit Self-Driving Cars. The email, entitled Completely Driverless Waymo Cars Are on the Way, was sent to customers that use its ride-hailing app in its suburbs of Phoenix. Both the early rider program and Waymo One service use self-driving Chrysler Pacifica minivans to shuttle Phoenix residents in a geo-fenced area that covers several suburbs, including Chandler and Tempe. All of these self-driving rides have a human safety driver behind the wheel. A driverless ride is what it sounds like. No safety driver behind the wheel, although a Waymo employee would likely be present in the vehicle initially. TechCrunch was able to confirm from Waymo that the email went out to members of Waymo's early ride program. The email posted below. I'm not going to read it because we already read it. Waymo, formerly known as the Google self-driving project, first began testing its technology in 2009 in and around its Mountain View, California headquarters. It's been a slow and steady roll ever since. The company has expanded its test area to other cities, spun out of its own business, and iterated the vehicle design and sensors around it. Waymo opened a testing and operations center in Chandler, Arizona in 2016. Since then, the company has ramped up its testing in Chandler and other Phoenix suburbs, launched an early rider program, and slowly crept forward commercial deployment. The early rider program, which required vetted applicants to sign non-disclosure agreements to participate, launched in April 2017. In December, the company launched Waymo One, a commercial self-driving car service and accompanying app. Waymo One signaled that the company was starting to open up its service. Members of the early rider program were transferred to Waymo One, which allowed them to bring guests and even talk publicly about their rides. More recently, Waymo opened another technical service center in the Phoenix area in preparation to double its capacity and grow its commercial fleet. While driverless Waymo vehicles have been spotted periodically, they have never been used to shuttle the general public. The introduction of driverless vehicles would be a milestone for the company, and yet there remains a number of questions. It's unclear how many of these driverless rides there will be, or what constraints Waymo will be placed on them. It's likely that these will operate in more simple, controlled environments for months before expanding to more complex situations. So this is where we are right now in 2019. So by 2020, we're talking about the first rollout of driverless vehicles picking people up, and actually no assistance will be provided this time around. So all these people doing Uber and Lyft, give or take a few 5 to 10 years, by 2030, you may have to look for another gig. This is where we are
Yeah,
right now.
man, that's the unfortunate thing. You know, like the Uber Lyft game was largely temporary in terms of a driver. The drivers were largely used to geo-map everything.
Mhm.
You know, so all the little side streets, all the little everything, man, all the little sneak shortcuts, all that shit, all that data got recorded.
Yep. Yep. And data that they think is bad data, will be discarded, or truncated so that they get the right data, because they need as much data as possible, but not not bad data, like taking shortcuts up, one-way streets and stuff like that. You see that a lot with Uber drivers.
Yeah. I mean, they edit. They're gonna, like you said, they're gonna truncate all that, right? They're gonna X out all that, but all of the actual geo mapping, right? Route, like all of the various routes. There's AI. There's like an AI algorithm that can compile pieces of other routes, right, to connect one destination to another,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of like the humans created the pieces to the puzzle, and now the AI basically puts the puzzle together, right, using the vehicles. So the all the AI, all the Uber and Lyft drivers, man, whether they know this or not, they provided the data.
Right. They did their job.
Yep.
Anything you want to add, Clashingo?
I'm just trying to picture what that's gonna be like with a girlfriend and going to the movies.
Well, I don't foresee it being a negative. I mean, I think, and I could be wrong about this, is that it This is the future. I mean, the whole idea of you picking up your girl or some girl for a date and stuff like that, that may go out the window. You may send a Waymo vehicle go pick up your girl, and then the vehicle comes picks you up too. And that would just be the case going forward for a date.
Right.
Um,
I mean, it might be a real nerdy point, but it kind of reminds me of that scene in what was that? The original Total Recall, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he was riding in that self-driving car, going. Was it to recall, or was he going to the airport? I can't remember.
mhm.
And he was telling it. He was giving it directions, but it's like, I mean, it's. I mean, I imagine it's going to go farther than just simple point to point. Go here and go there, because I mean, eventually there'll be AI, and you can be like, well, drive faster, or
No, it's all it's all locked in, right? So there's a certain speed limit that it's going to abide by. It's going to um, it's being geo-fenced, like the article said. The other article said the same thing about the e-bike, right? So you can't go out of certain zones, or the wheels are going to lock up on you. Um, and for all intents and purposes, it's also looking at fuel efficiency, right? So it has to determine whether or not this is going to be feasible based on the amount of fuel that it has, or based on the amount of energy that it has.
so then what's the implications for that when we start thinking about like the free movement of people, and and maybe I'm being paranoid or slightly libertarian, but like as far as like government monitoring and stuff, if this becomes like a public sector thing, and I mean,
What you mean, the impact, the social impact?
yeah.
I think millennials and zennials are going to be more accepting to this than, let's say, boomers, right? Boomers look at everything from a analog perspective, right? They're like the biggest Luddites, right? They don't even like the idea of Siri or another voice-enabled app taking over its phone, right? For in terms of like looking for things on scouring the internet. So that being said, I think you'll start to see the adoption between the Zennials and then the Millennials, and then comes the Gen X's, and maybe the Boomers will probably be a lot of Boomers will be long gone by the time this is all fully kicked in by 2030, 2035. So they won't even matter for the most part, because it's all about exclusivity when it comes to technology now. Who has the first people used to sleep in line for the iPhone releases and stuff like that. Who has the Samsung Galaxy Note 10? Who has the new iPad and stuff like that. That's what it's all about, exclusivity, and who's the first to have it. So the first time you see a rapper or some celebrity get inside an autonomous vehicle and go to the next destination, and they upload that to social media, that's going to be a game changer, especially if a rapper does it.
Right. But I mean, it also makes me think about what the future of car design even is. Because I mean, who knows? Like 10 or 15 years ago, a car might just be like a couch with four wheels, and it's like people facing each other and talking. It's just going on down the road.
Yeah, that's pretty much most of the new designs for level 5, right? So level 5 means that there's no steering wheel. So there will be no, it'll be exactly how you just envisioned it, that it's going to be two love seats on each side of the vehicle. But then how does that play into crash safety standards, right? Because then you don't have an airbag. Usually an airbag comes out the dashboard and keeps your head from hitting the dashboard or the steering wheel. But in this regard, there is no steering wheel. So what happens when you get T-boned or you get rear-ended or head-on collision with a human driver?
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what I'm thinking about in my head. Like, so you're riding along on the highway, and somebody's racing, and they do something mad, and they end up hitting you or something. Like, I would think at some point, safety wise, they would just like ban manually driven cars from like certain roadways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's eventually going to happen too. They'll start to use overhead license plate readers in certain areas of the city, and they'll bill you a plate if you're a human driver, if you drive into certain neighborhoods or certain downtown financial districts and stuff like that. and you'll get this big ass bill at home. You'll probably pay $100 just to come into the city. No different than you would pay to park into a garage on a busy 5-day week. I know most of the garages here. Like I was at IBM last month, and I had to pay $75 for parking. So they're coming. But yeah, let me get to this next article.
Sorry.
What were you saying?
No, I was just thinking about how that's going to change how people design cities, like if they ever redesign these cities that were in around these vehicles.
Complex, did you have something you wanted to add? Because I saw that you went muted.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to. Is the next article kind of connected to this?
No.
No. Okay. Well, just a couple quick points to what Black Shingo just asked. Well, so right now, what you have is, like in LA, for example, the road infrastructure is the first thing that gets upgraded or updated to accommodate all of this. Okay, and then what they start to do is they start putting in charging infrastructure, communications infrastructure, all that type of stuff. Things like putting USB chargers in bus benches and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it starts. It's actually pretty benign as it rolls out. And then as things further progress to where we have full autonomy in terms of cars operating and stuff like that, that's when the landscape of cities will fundamentally change. But right now, you just have infrastructural adaptions that are made. Real simple ones. They're very benign.
Yeah, and the charging would have to be Complex. You gotta mute yourself. Yeah, the charging would have to be wireless, because if the whole purpose of the vehicle is to be autonomous, then you can't have a physical connector needing to be plugged into the vehicle, right? Like you do now, right? The PHEVs, the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, require some kind of human assistance to actually plug the charger in so it can get a charge. But the thing is that if it's going to be autonomous, who's going to plug it in? So that's where wireless charging comes in. That's where you're going to have to set up. Most of your parking spots are going to have to be modified to accept these inductors in the ground to accept wireless charging when they meet vehicle.
Right, and that's the thing too. It's kind of like, it's like when you have 5G starting to roll out more and more, that's when you'll start to see more of these types of things, like basically like whole areas where cars just wirelessly charge. Like the only time these cars are literally going to come in to say like the service area is literally when something pings and says that it's time for service. Right? Either that or they'll just have one person who goes out in the field, and let's just say they go around and they just clean the inside of the cars out, but they just leave the cars as is. Or let's just say there's like some sort of gas station or something that has a car wash, and the cars like are programmed like twice a week to just pull in there.
Not a gas station, but an electric station, right? So
or electric, charging station with a car wash, and it just pulls in. It gets cleaned and maintenance once, twice a week, and it all operates largely on its own.
Right, because it would have to pass the same sort of public health sanitation standards that, let's say, a food truck has to go through, right? Because it has to be sanitized. Can't have cum stains and stuff like that and gum under the seat.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Let me get to this next article. This one is from BuyandHill.com. Interesting. Internet of Things is about to change the world. Invest now. Ever since my first Buy and Hill video, when I held up that little computer chip, I've stood by the strength of the Internet of Things. And it's about to become even bigger. Check out this. Oh, I'm not going to go through all that. Yeah, this is I don't want to play this video because I don't want to get flagged, but essentially what's happening right now is that IoT is exploding right now. They're talking about at least 1.5 billion devices by 2020, the end of 2020, and maybe even 2 billion by 2022. So now is a good time to really brush up your skills on being a developer in terms of software development, and adopting a program language that is compliant with IoT development. Linux is one, right? Linux will be the main operating system on a micro scale. And then you start thinking about programming languages, you start talking about Python and C++ and Java. So those are some of the areas of investment that's going to be needed from an academic standpoint.
Hey, Mike, in about, I would say within the next week or two, I know I had planned to do this sometime back, but I want to do this now. I want to actually do like a live tech demo of like how, say, like an electric scooter plugged into an IoT infrastructure, how it all works from your phone.
Yep.
So we'll do a live. I say like just give it 2 weeks, man. We'll do a live tech demo and we'll talk about it.
Hey, what's going on, Gabe?
But just real quick, when you say, hey, what's good? What's going on, Gabe? When you say though, like the sheer number of devices, like people don't understand, man. Like how benign connectivity is going to be. Like everything will be connected, and and the way it's going to be governed is by like an IoT type of infrastructure. So that's what will accommodate so many devices being connected and sending and receiving data all at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say that a lot of this is even already being done. I mean, I know that there is the IoT, but kind of like in the manufacturing and industrial environment, it's what they even call IIoT, which stands for like the Industrial Internet of Things. And it's being implemented in so many different ways. I was not too long, I was with a customer in New York, and they're actually implementing, I don't know if you ever heard of like AMI infrastructure, advanced metering infrastructure.
Yep.
So it's utilizing smart meters, collectors, and kind of like a server type of infrastructure in order to pretty much kind of, you might be saying, eliminated some jobs, right? Because typically what would happen is that there will be a service technician from a local utility that will come out to your home to read your meter or replace it, turn it on, turn it off. Where with this advanced metering infrastructure, what happens is that these smart meters at people's homes, these utilities are installing them, and they're automatically getting readings from these things. They're automatically able to shut you on, shut you off or turn you on without having the middleman of somebody always coming out there to service. So,
yep,
it's really interesting what's kind of happening.
I have that in my basement right now, and it's connected to a carbon monoxide detector as well, and it connects out to the I guess some kind of local grid. You see these utility trucks come down, and they have these kind of cameras and devices on them on the top of them, where it actually captures all the information as it comes down the street.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Because what actually happens is that there is, even if you notice a lot of times in like the AMI infrastructure, at the bottom of like power poles or telephone poles, there would be some type of box or whatever. It's usually located somewhere inside a place where there's a lot of customers. And this box is pretty much like a device, which is what you call it, like a collector. So it's collecting everybody's data within that particular neighborhood, and it's using that, as transmitting that via telecom. So whoever the internet service provider in the area is, and those readings are automatically going right back to the utility in order to monitor what's happening. Now, there's people that's against it too, right? So a lot of people are like, don't install smart meters in my house, and it's invasive. They know when you're home based upon some of the readings. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
So IoT is going to explode. It's just a matter of time, for all intents and purposes. So definitely guys got to study up on IoT. We did a whole entire live stream some months ago, probably about 6 months ago on IoT. So go back to the archives and check that out. All right, this one is from fastcompany.com. Issa Rae has a new gig, the voice of Google Assistant. Interesting. There seems to be an arms race brewing among tech companies for celebrities to lend their voices to home assistants. And so far, Google is winning with its latest addition, writer and producer Issa Rae. The Insecure star follows singer John Legend as the latest celebrity cameo for Google Assistant. To switch to Rae's voice, say, "Hey Google, talk like Issa," or select her in the assistant setting. And according to press release, there's a list of Easter eggs created specifically for Rae. Mirror Talk, are you single? Do you have a TV show? Give me some writing advice. What do you think about Lawrence? What is your best pickup line? Are you awkward? Do you know any yo mama jokes? Give me an Issa Rae quote. Compliment me. Can you rap? Can
What
you
are
beatbox?
what are your opinions on the octane scale?
Oh yeah. Should I watch Insecure? What was your major? Are you a writer? How do you pronounce your name? What's your full name? What do you think of John Legend? Do you love Daniel or Lawrence more? I mean, what are these people from the manosphere asking these questions? Google leverages DeepMind's WaveNet speech synthesis mode to create realistic sounding voices without having to record hundreds of pages of dialogue and prompts. Using AI drastically shortens studio time, which would undoubtedly make Google Assistant a more attractive proposition for other celebrities. Celebrity assistant voices were first rolled out last April with Legend. Amazon's Alexa followed suit with Samuel Jackson, and understandably, two versions, explicit and non-explicit. Now Rae joins the list, and she certainly won't be the last. Yeah, this is interesting that they're picking a lot of Black people, right? They're respecting their demographics because they understand that who who their growing demographic is going to be, and that's going to be a minority voice, right? Black and brown people, for that matter. So this is actually dope, man. And the new technology doesn't even require them to be in the studio reading a whole bunch of cue cards and lines and stuff, so they can just synthesize that person's voice. That's really dope. I would like to hear like somebody like O'Shea on Alexa or something like that.
Or Steve Harvey.
Yeah, it would be dope to hear O'Shea do Jackson on here. Like, don't ask me no questions, nigga. Don't orange me.
Steve Harvey.
A completely belligerent persona for your Google device.
Right. Nigga, don't orange me, nigga.
Don't orange me, nigga.
Send that nigga to the wall, please. Stop asking me questions.
Calypso, Oregon.
Yeah. Crazy. Let me see if anybody. Okay. Yeah, shoot a video. All right, this is from face-to-faceafrica.com. Turning trash into electric wheelchairs, this self-taught Kenyan is solving disability issues. Look at this brother, man. Amazing. Lincoln Wame is a self-taught Kenyan inventor who is solving mobility issues with recycled materials. He builds electric trikes for disabled Kenyans. He told the BBC that he started building electric chairs using scrap metal after an accident left him injured. For him, it all started out as a hobby and later turned into a passion. Wame, 30, spent 3 years perfecting his electric wheelchair design using batteries from old laptops and materials he got from junkyards. Unlike many seasoned African entrepreneurs, Lincoln had no training of any sort. The secret is just trying. He told the Republic Report, the public broadcaster. Wame's passion has transformed into a business. He made tricycles until he saw a need to help alleviate the struggles of persons with disability. It was then that he thought of covering his tricycle into converting his tricycle into a wheelchair. He built his first electric wheelchair in December 2018 and has since built more. When provided with all the material he needs, Wame says it will take him a day to build a wheelchair. Wame does not only make custom electric chairs using scrap materials he collects from junkyards, he is also saving the environment. My wheelchairs are powered by lithium-ion batteries. I source them from old laptop batteries. In the process of I am saving the environment because I'm using e-waste, he revealed. The self-taught innovator hopes to mass produce his designs in future and sell them all over Africa. There's more in this video. So let's watch the video. At the risk.
That's cool.
Yo, dude's joint is like dipping too, man.
It makes me wonder what I should have done before I returned 30.
He's using a hub motor.
Yeah.
Like the front wheel, it's a hub motor. You know, see, the thing is that to make e-bike applications, e-scooters and shit like that, it's actually pretty damn simple if you're familiar with like how the Chinese manufacture their components and stuff. Real simple. The front wheel that's on that wheelchair or electric trike, I mean, that's used in so many different applications. So many different applications. So it's like using like Chinese made components to make stuff like this. It's literally like a plug and play. It's like you just pick the parts and you adapt them to something and they all plug in. Batteries, controllers, the motors, everything. We got to just tap into our inventive creativity and start, you know, making like next level like designs, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking because I'm just listening to the video, but you know, this guy, in my opinion, man, he's my hero for today, man. That dude is on another level, man. Definitely brain
Straight up,
trust
'cause that thing
material.
is dipping, dude. That thing was moving too.
Yeah, man, this dude is really, he's self-taught, you know. Obviously, he's not going to be select because he doesn't have the swagger, but that dude's my hero for today, man. That's on point. Definitely on point.
Bro, I mean, I don't know how one could be non-select and they sitting up here making their own EVs with no training. That's some shit right there, man.
Amazing, man. I would love to invest in guys like that, man. Love to invest in guys. See, and these are opportunities. Listen to what he said. I plan to sell all of these all over Africa to help other people. See, guys like that don't get credit. They don't get it, man.
For all intents and purposes, dude, he's an EV startup.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, bro, he is an EV startup. What you just saw right there is his working prototype.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a point of information, like, what is I mean, do they have a lot of like bike lane infrastructure in certain African countries and cities by any chance? Do you know that? Or
No, I mean, you look at the video, 90% of their roads were dirt roads. I mean, only a very small percentage of their roads are actually paved. So that the bike is designed to traverse to be an ATV for all intents and purposes.
All you gotta do is throw some mountain bike tires on there, man.
Some knobbies.
Right, but it
Yep.
makes me think because I had a friend that was like he was trying to sell bikes that were made in Ghana here in the US for a while. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. And it's like, be a nice business opportunity to work with a brother like this or anybody else that was doing this type of work.
Mm-hmm. Nah, man, I think that's dope, man. I salute that dude, man. He's he's on it, man. We don't see a whole lot. Well, in ADOS, we don't see a whole lot of brothers like this, man. We were just talking about this, the first article, right? That brothers can actually get into this market. And here you have a black man in Africa, self-taught, never went to school, and taking scrap metal, taking things from the junkyard, willing to do all that. How many brothers in the manosphere are willing to go to a junkyard?
Man, me. My old shop had we had a boneyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying it half jokingly. No, but I know what you're saying, because there's not a lot of brothers that's down to really kind of have like to kind of work in or create a space where, you're rummaging through stuff to make something, to prototype something, right? You're adapting parts and pieces from this, that, to build a working model of something. And then once you have the model together, then you refine it. Now you go get all of your new components and say, okay, now I want to use this, and use that. Then you duplicate it. But this time, this is going to be more like your production prototype. Your first version is your working concept. The second one is your production prototype. That's what gives people an idea of what the finished product looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's all
he's taking laptop batteries, he's jigging them up, soldering them. Guys like that, man, that's why, it frustrates me when I see people try to discourage brothers from being innovative, man. This dude is the benchmark of what a Black Brain Trust member is in action.
Straight up, man. Hackware status.
Yeah.
Grab some shit, hack it together, man. Make a working prototype or something. Proof of concept.
Mm-hmm. We got Cyberdyne on the panel now. What's going on, Cyberdyne?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Just sitting back listening. Yeah, that guy's pretty dope, man. He's it's funny. Excuse me. He forgetting motorcycles on the background, but it's funny how a lot of corporations, when we go through decommissioning of laptops and whatnot, all those batteries, like you said, you got to be able to be on some jig 'em up type stuff when you're doing stuff like that. But yeah, no, he is man. Somebody said what easy investment opportunity he is. So hopefully, it's interesting. You don't see the Chinese going and invest in nothing like that can actually go back into the African community. They want to invest into somebody who they can, extract resources from and extract money from. But, it's crazy.
Well, the Chinese don't necessarily have to invest in somebody who does something like that, because one, China produces electric vehicles. They're positioned to actually dominate the global market in it. So they already produce it. They don't need to invest in somebody else to make it. Mm-hmm. What they do, though, is they make the components available for other people. See, China wins on both fronts, whether you want to develop an electric vehicle or they have their own companies in China developing them. Guess where you're more than likely going to get the parts from?
Mm-hmm. China, Taiwan.
Yeah, they don't have to really invest in you like that.
Yeah, but
it's incumbent upon us to invest in ourselves
and invest into the continent as well. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the Africans don't want you. You should be building here and things like that." Well, you know what? When you got brothers like that are out there building, things from scrap pieces, man. Companies pay big money, big salaries for guys like that. Big salaries. That's how Steve Wozniak helped Apple. The Woz was exactly that.
Yep,
know?
he's a hackware
He's a
dude.
he's a legend. He,
Yeah.
you know, as we got a dumb CIO who loves to talk crap about, oh yeah, we want to try to have the Apple philosophy. He himself cannot, plug in a mouse. But anyway, he was giving Steve Jobs a lot, all the credit, which Steve Jobs is dope. But I was like, I tell people all the time, without the Woz, Apple would still be in the garage somewhere.
Mhm. Well, think about Silicon Valley as a whole, man. The way that they were able to cultivate technology, new technology, they got support from the whole community. You don't have that sort of support in the Black community. A Black man sitting in his basement, he's an incel, right? He's an incel. But if a white dude does it, then he's awesome.
That is true.
He's a trailblazer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Definitely dope, man. I tip my hat to him, man. We got to keep saluting cats like that. We covered another article some months ago, probably over a year ago, where two guys from Sudan created a flying drone, a robot, basically. And this drone was able to scour the areas of desertification and map out the areas of the country that were drought stricken and actually provide irrigation for crops out there. Dope stuff, and they won top prize at a contest for it. And they did the same thing. They got it from scrap pieces. So you see people on the continent who come from poverty that are doing big things to change the ways their society actually works, man. We covered another article earlier in the summer. A brother who used blockchain technology to uh, to protect the wildlife, the rhinoceroses and the elephants and stuff that were going rare, and to actually protect them by putting their genetics and DNA code onto the blockchain and map them out and improve, not improve, but allow people to invest into these rare animals to save them on the continent. This is a Black man that did this. So let me get to this next article real quick. This one's from fastcompany.com. Rwanda just released the first smartphone made entirely in Africa. Rwanda's Mara Group has grand ambitions. The company hopes to help turn Rwanda into a regional tech hub, and it's just got one step closer to completing that mission. This week, the company released 2 smartphones, earning Mara Group the title of the first smartphone manufacturer in Africa. Rwanda President Paul Kagame has announced Africa's first high-tech smartphone category, CNN reported. While smartphones are assembled in other African nations, Egypt, Algeria, and South Africa all have assembly plants, according to Reuters. Those companies all import the components, but at Mara, they manufacture the phones from the motherboards to the packaging, which is all done in the new factory. Kagame made the announcement in a press conference on Monday in the capital of Kigali. The phones, called Mara X and Mara Z, are the first made in Africa models. Here are the details. Mara X model, 16 gigabytes of storage, retail $120,250 Rwandan francs, $130 US. Mara Z model, 32 gigabytes of storage, retail $175,750 Rwandan francs, $190 US. Both run on Google's Android operating system, while the company admits they are a little more expensive than other options, like the popular techno brand phones made by Chinese-owned company. They hope customers are willing to pay a bit more for quality and made in Africa pride. The facility is an important step for Rwanda, which has worked to transform itself into an economic innovation leader. they hosted the World Economic Forum in Africa in May 2018, and work is reportedly well underway on the Kigali Innovation City, which will house innovation labs and provide training and funding for technology companies. This is dope.
Dude. What? I almost don't want to talk about this on the hangout, dude. I kind of want to talk about this shit on the low, bro. I want to know, like, are there any duties on importing those phones? Do you think there's any duties or anything, it's subjected to any sort of tariffs?
What do you mean into the United States?
Yeah.
All goods
Importing those
made,
phones in.
all goods made in Africa are 0% duty free into the United States.
They're duty free, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's.
Let me shut up.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Because wait, real quick. How much was it? How much were they talking retail?
$130 to $190 for the top of the line.
For the top of the line. See, so I'm already adding up in my head what cost would be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's yeah, let me look into that.
I'm looking at it on I'm kind of side scrolling with Mike on CNN because I'm looking at one portion of the subpage where it says it's entirely homemade, and I think Africa's been flirting. They've been hosting a lot of digital tech conferences and hackathons, and they've been like slowly but surely just building out their tech sector. And it's interesting with this phone here because I'm interested in the subcomponent. You know what I mean? And if they have 100% homemade subcomponents, and again, like no subcomponents, nothing that's being piggybacked off of, like Huawei coming from China, it's just a matter of time before, I think they can pose themselves to be a credible entity in telecommunications market space, save some country doesn't try to play them to the left by, hitting them with, specs on, phone won't operate over here, because we know it's about the network carriers and letting that phone into our networks. To be honest, I hope they keep it international and keep it African, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And just as a heads up, if you have Google Fi supports international coverage. So
Mike, dude, this is what I'm saying, man. I might have to like cop some of these, man.
Richard Victor Dixon asking in the chat, Mike V, is there a focus on exporting market or the consumer base on the continent, or both? You have to keep in mind there are 1 billion people on the continent. That's a market in itself. They have more people on the continent than what the United States has altogether. The United States only has roughly around 300 million people, give or take. So they'll sell every last phone on the continent itself, just based on the fact that it's made in Africa, right? In the United States, you don't really, that's a different sort of demographic, so to speak. But my concern and my focus here is we covered an article 9 months ago about mobile OS development in Africa. Go back and check the archives. We talked about this. What Africa is needing right now is code developers. They need people who can develop applications for smartphones and smartwatches and other IoT devices. So this is what I was trying to tell people 9 months ago. This is coming. They need app developers, and they need it now. Yeah, it's nice they got a smartphone, but where's the apps, right? So you need African-driven apps that are going to cater to their demographic.
I was away from the computer. Is this like an Android OS, or is it like a proprietary thing?
No, it's Android.
Yeah, it's Android.
Yeah, this is Android. But Rwanda, ironically, and I talked about this last week, they have a tech conference coming up in March 2020. I think it's called Afrotech. So guys gotta jump on that, man. I'm already booking my tickets now, so I'm gonna be going myself. This is probably gonna be the talk of the show anyways. Is the smartphone. But that shows you the capabilities that Africans have. I mean, Complex and myself had talked about this many times on these hangouts. Africans are at least 20 years ahead of ADOS in terms of human capital innovation.
You know what else that opens up?
Yeah, well, there is that, but they still have some control of their land.
Don't jump the gun. There. Make sure you raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. Go ahead, Cyberdyne.
No, I was just saying you was on point with that comment. You know what this opens up when you take a step back and think about it. Mobile applications. If you have an operating system environment, you have an ecosystem for mobile applications. You have an ecosystem for applications on that environment. If you have an ecosystem for applications on an operating system environment, you then have a larger ecosystem. Like, this is major stuff, man. They got an ecosystem. I mean, like you said, they got 1 billion people on the continent of Africa.
Yeah.
And they can sell almost every phone. So that means, goodness gracious, like, this is ridiculous. My mind is like doing this brain tree right now, and I'm trying to stop it. But basically, they could implement, the field is wide open to implement their own African-based ecosystem of what Google Play is.
That's been talked about.
You see, and it's overwhelming.
We did a whole live stream on this back probably about 6 to 9 months ago. If you look through the archives, it's called Mobile OS Development in Africa, and we talked about this. They have a proprietary OS called Kai OS that's going to be African and Latin American based, and it's actually in play already. So it's called a feature phone, not a smartphone. So it's a phone that runs one app at a time, but it's cheap. It's only $15 for a phone, but it runs Facebook. It runs Google Maps or something like that. This is what we were talking about on that live stream, that there is a huge market on the continent itself for app development. This is where a lot of ADOS people can get into to contribute their apps to the App Store and actually close out Google, Facebook, and all these other Western technologies from invading this market. We talked about this. I tell guys all the time on here, focus on app development, focus on Python, focus on C++. I mean, you're a system architect yourself, man. So
JavaScript.
Yeah, JavaScript. JavaScript works on Kai OS. That's what we were talking about.
JavaScript.
Let me see if I can find the
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. I would say dig it up, because we've been covering this shit at length, man, for a good minute. We've been tracking this, and like, now that I hear word of like a proprietary phone being made there and stuff, running on an Android, it's open, 0% duties or taxes to import it. Come on, man. I'm not gonna put the whole business out there, but I'm gonna tell you right now, man. Just hearing that is wide open, bro. If we really wanted to do something with it, we could. I intend to. I'm gonna fucking around with it on some level.
As a point of information, have you guys ever done a panel about introducing people to different programming languages?
We try to. I think we did one live stream on it, but you can actually. We're going to revise it at some point. I was planning on doing it Saturday.
That was one of those Saturday night hangouts, Mike.
Yeah, one of those that go like 3 or 4 people watching. But yeah, let me drop the link. so that these guys can see. And actually, I'll share my screen so that people can see that we are not BSing, that we did cover this. So we covered this January 5th, 2019. Black IT Talk, mobile OS app development in African smartphones. So we was talking about this 10 months ago.
That was 10 months.
Yeah. They got
Damn.
174 views. It wasn't jawline enough. It wasn't select enough. There's a document.
Shit. Hey, the way we could look, I bet you if you go back and listen to that one, there's so much relevance tied to this one article that you just read right now. Bro, that would put us like beyond select status, man. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome fucking future visionary shit. We're on that status.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at the docket, and I'm just sharing my screen so that people can see for right now, Chinese factories pump out $65 smartphones. So here you go right here, smartphones are getting significantly cheaper. What else? KaiOS, we covered that. Google invests $22 million into KaiOS. Tizen OS, which is a Linux Foundation based operating system that is open source. WebOS, we covered WebOS. Intro into Android. And Linux Foundation, you can get the training for free. Udacity, Android Basics, so Android app development, and Python and blockchain through JavaScript and RESTful API. So we covered all this stuff months ago. Chaos Rain, you had something you wanted to add?
Damn. One thing I do want to ask: what happened to the brother that created his own smartphone here in the United States? I think he's in Florida. I forgot his name.
You might be talking about Young Grizzly. I don't.
You broke up.
You might be talking about Young Grizzly.
Is that his name? It's a light skinned dude. I remember somebody shared that months ago. I'm telling.
Oh, I don't know, to be quite honest.
Okay. Okay, that's all I want to ask.
Okay.
One thing I do see, if they develop that from the dirt, from the scrapping of other phones, it tells you the possibility that what we can't and what we not doing right now, because that seemed like some simple stuff, but because we're too distracted, that we're not come up with these type of innovations, and they could just do that in Africa. I'm just saying.
You have to look at the manosphere as a microcosm of the Black community as a whole. And what you're seeing is that, people are talking about things that are not essential. They're not, the return on investment is so low. And because you get sidetracked by that, we talked about this all the time since the inception of the Black Brain Trust, that innovation comes from complex thoughts and conversations. What kind of conversations are Black people having? They're not complex at all. Very basic, very rudimentary.
And what I've noticed with the education in this country, that I think we're bottom last. I could be wrong. This might pull up numbers again. And in regards to education up here, that could also cause for less innovation. And, the conversation that also plays a role. So it seemed to me that one of the few things, because we have enough young people that's not adults yet, that we can get to their heads now about certain things instead of them playing catch up. So that's how I see it. We gotta control the education.
So my question. So my question to you, Chaos Rain, where do you fit in this whole entire ecosystem?
Damn, I think I just stopped.
Did you hear me?
No, repeat what you said.
And Mike, I was gonna say, Mike, I think you gotta ask the question again.
Say it again.
Yeah, the question to you, Chaos Rain, is where do you fit in this whole entire ecosystem?
What, in the tech field?
Yes.
Well, I can't really say right now where I fit fall right now. I'm in Missouri right now. That's all I'll let people know right now. Keep it fair.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we're gonna have to mute you. We'll go to Cyber9. He has his hand up.
Yeah, you know.
Hey, Mike, and then Richard Victor Dixon has a question.
Do you want to take that question first? I can
No,
wait.
we'll go to you first.
Okay. You know where I'm at over here on the other side of the harbor in Jersey, and there's a club over here. Because the gentleman Chaos had just mentioned something. I went. You know, I know the owner. He's a cool cat. And I went in there with what is that? An AWS certified solutions architect book one time.
Yep.
I took a book in there. You know, just my nature. And you know, if you want to know how the microcosm of Black folks are gonna look at you, go into a club when the females or the hood rats or the thoughts or whatever you want to call them, scabs, are there, and you in there having a drink of some Di Serono or some Johnny Walker or something, and you got an AWS architect book sitting on the damn counter. You reading it, and they looking at you like, what's wrong with this dude? Who comes into the club with architect software book? You know what I'm saying? And you know, I think to the other point is that you know, the reason we can't do nothing like that over here, I wouldn't say it's necessarily because of distraction. You know, there's a there's a cost barrier. You know, you just can't pick up components of a phone and just assemble something and do it. Programming is hard. You got to be initiated. I mean, engineering, let me say that much. Engineering is hard. It really is. It's there are easy parts of it, but it's difficult. You know, it's not for the how many people do we all know in your respective majors going through, you know, for those of us who did, you know, go to college for parts of our major or parts of our career, and we had everybody that came in and they was, you know, that first couple days of class, and then that second week, and then that third week you look up, you don't see them no more.
Yeah, that happens. They're usually gone by the end of the first semester.
They was gone. Like, man, what up? What happened? Oh yeah, you know, man, I had to change it. I had a life change. You know, I decided I wanted to go do this. Oh, okay. You know, so that's what that is. Yeah, we just our people, man. I think somebody said it before, is that you know, get to the kids, and that's a possibility. But you know, the microcosm as a whole, you know, that manosphere type thinking, they're not gonna make it. They don't have the aptitude. They have boxed themselves in. So some of them are done. You know.
Yeah, we call it finished over here.
Yeah.
Let me go to Gabe because he has his hand up.
Hey, yeah, I was gonna ask about like I don't know. Do you guys know anything about, I guess, the capability for Africa to mass produce? I get. Oh no, baby, I'm not talking to you. Oh yeah. Africa's ability to mass produce those phones, or specifically Rwanda, because I think a lot of the market, or at least the countries that have the capability to mass produce, you know, East Asian, Taiwan, China, or even like Mexico. Is there a lot of infrastructure there for them to mass produce phones? And
The article states that they have about 4 countries with manufacturing capacity to do this. So it wouldn't be difficult for them to actually do it. I know that they're building new factories on the Sinai right now. That should be all completed in early 2020 for this sort
Ethiopia also.
Yeah, Ethiopia. That's right too. Complex. So you're seeing all of this start to pop up now. These manufacturing facilities can run 24/7 because they have the human capital to do it in Africa. And they're going to sell every last one of those phones because there are 900 million people who will, by 2022, be on a smartphone or some form of mobile phone, because they're traversing all of the traditional infrastructure that the United States went through in the second and third industrial revolution. So there's no need for them to wait on anything. They'll just sell it as is, and they'll probably sell it, you know, in the same way most cell phone companies hear cell phones, right? So they bundle the cost of the phone into the plan itself.
And Mike, let's not also forget that, you know, you're largely talking about the same operating system when you port this over to a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're looking at, you can actually split this into two sub market segments using one main software stack. So there's many angles to this.
Yeah, you can customize ROMs. I mean, most of your custom ROMs from what's the name of the website? The Rootkit website. Basically, they've been customizing Android ROMs for years, probably since 2008, and that went on for a long time with HTC phones and stuff like that. They were customizing ROMs and extending the life of the first Google phone, the T-Mobile one with the keyboard. They extended the life on that for quite some time, even long beyond T-Mobile and Google anticipated to be. So we know that the capabilities are there to customize ROMs. I talked about this a month or so ago. I ran into a Linux architect, a guru, and he told me, you know, I asked him what is his foundation, you know, what are they doing over on the continent? What do you think that open source is going to be for the continent of Africa? And he said, let me show you. And he said, look at all these look at the foundational program that we have going on over there right now, and they're developed, you know, in Zambia. And they said they're getting this in 3 days. Africans are learning to code
Right.
3 days, and heavily invested into cloud computing.
Yeah, I think we got Richard Dixon. I think there's another question in the chat also, I think, asking about infrastructure.
Yeah, Dr. Phoenix hit the nail on the head. Cyanogen. That was the name of the platform. I slipped my mind for whatever reason. Thank you, Dr. Phoenix. What's the other question that Richard has? What was the other question? I didn't see it.
Hold on, let me find it. It's a little noisy in here. Yep. He said, wait, no. Because he addressed a question to you. Hold on, let me find it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me find it here. Yeah, something about Mike V. What's the major mobile operating system on the continent? Android?
Yeah, it's Android. Well, it's not Android. It's actually KaiOS. KaiOS has like 200 million phones on the continent right now.
Okay, hold on. It's loud over here.
Yeah, those Cyanogen mod guys, I think they all got hired out to like different companies, man. Yeah, and I use a OnePlus phone. Dr. Phoenix said Cyanogen helped to design the custom ROM OnePlus uses in their devices. He's right about that. Yeah, Dr. Phoenix is right on the money with that. So let me see. All right, let me get to this next article. This one is from face-to-faceafrica.com. 11-year-old Nigerian Naomi Oloyede wows 200 global delegates at the Education for Justice in Austria. He's serious, too. Children have a voice that is often overlooked, but when close attention is paid to them, the world would realize the wealth of wisdom that resides in these little humans. After an outstanding performance in a debate how to combat corruption in Nigeria, 11-year-old Naomi Oloyede was selected by NGO Step Up for Social Development and Empowerment in Nigeria in collaboration with United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime to represent the country at a high-level conference in Vienna, Austria. That's a girl.
You didn't know that was a girl?
Yo, you be hating, man.
I look like a girl, man.
No, I didn't see that initially. Olayi, a junior high student, was made an ambassador of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in her school, the Battle Axe Academy. Lukbi Abujua, the honor was conferred on her at the inauguration of Integrity Club in the school. Interesting. I just, I don't see things like this in the United States going down like this all the time. So what do you guys think?
I'm thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the differences. I have a African friend. She's cool. She's an option, right? She's on the wife. I call it the wife wheel, the shopping cart.
Mm-hmm.
And nice sister, man. Got a good brain from Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. And all the time, she talks about the differences. And as you was reading that, I'm like, okay, because I know some Nigerians. There's some good Nigerians. A lot of them up at over there at St. John's. Paying big tuitions, paid for them, and going back and being productive or being productive somewhere else. But look at the chasm, the difference. We on one side, they're on the other side. Look at their environment. Like, I'm not saying, they got sparkly gold and fairies and angels flying around, but look at us. Look at all what we got. Yeah, we got it all. We got everything. We got access to everything. They have damn near, great foundational resources, but they don't got nothing. And look at the culture. It's the culture. It's the culture that's only the culture makes that possible. Our culture is a cesspool, man. It's a cesspool. It's a cesspool. Their culture, they take pride in uplifting, excelling, competing, dominating with the intellectual mind, dominating with things that's gonna have some substance down the line. We worried about the next damn Young Ma album coming out and shit. You know what I'm saying?
While she poses as masculine and talks about groping other women, no one sees a problem with that.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm with you.
Yeah, I would have to kind of partially disagree with that because so the young lady Naomi that was in that particular article from Nigeria, I don't know if you noticed the school that she went to. It's a very high preparatory school, and it's there in Abuja, which is the capital of Nigeria. So a lot of times, a lot of those individuals who are very much so in the prominence or in the spotlight of countries like Nigeria, which isn't poor overall, like they have some very high industries, high economic industries, especially like Nollywood. And individuals are like princes and princesses and kings and queens. So individuals like have money coming from Nigeria, especially those who you see that go to university in the US. A lot of it, like not everybody comes from the bottom of the bottom. Those individuals from Lagos, those individuals from Abuja, those individuals from highly populated cities within those large African countries, a lot of them have money. So I wouldn't say they come from nothing, but I would say that there's some that do, yeah, but there's a number that don't, especially those who are in the spotlight.
Well, I think he's referring to
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I think he's just saying metaphorically that people have less in Africa than what you have compared to the United States. You have people in the United States who have subsidized housing and still can't pay their rent. You find that I find it to be very interesting that your rent is $10 and yet you're getting evicted.
but you got the latest weave. You know, you got $500 weave. You getting packed from Poppy every week, you know, and selling it. You got, you know, the brand new, you know, KDs or LeBron James, and you can put it on that bottle with the club that costs $150.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mentality is just radically different, and that's how, you know, they're able to run circles around people.
I don't know.
Well,
It's
I'm saying
more
in
similar than you
reference.
think it would be. Yeah.
No, I'm saying in reference to this brother who's designing, you know, powered wheelchairs from scrap metal, like from scrap parts. Like that takes a lot of willpower in your brain to actually do something like that. You got brothers out here who will spend 8 hours a day in front of a liquor store doing nothing.
And they have money. Some
Right.
of them have re-up, like, you know, I hate, sorry if I jumped the gun.
No, go right ahead.
Like, let's put this in currency perspective, you know, for everybody out there that's listening and partaking of this. Like I said, I go to the Dominican Republic a lot. And one of the things that I would like to do internationally, right? Because if we scour the, you know, the planet, it's a lot of places that are developing. I don't want to be disrespectful as like third world, where innovation is needed, and we're able to provide that innovation because, you know, our money is heavier than theirs. Okay, so, you know, a lot of those brothers that you mentioned, those individuals, spending their life every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at a club, spending their life 5 days a week, smoking, drinking, copping gear, looking fresh, doing that with American dollars. And you know, the thing that crosses my mind is that while that brother is doing that, you know, I want to keep it real. You know, how is his life? What was he going through during that development process? You know, he wasn't eating, you know, and I don't want to judge, but he probably wasn't eating 4-course or 5-course meals. He wasn't eating, you know, Red Lobster, you know, Long John Steakhouse. He was, you know, probably humble means, and he was getting it in. He was hustling, late nights, engineering. Probably didn't get no sleep. Got up. Who knows if, you know, if he had transit or transportation, he walking. His conditions, and like I said, you know, from a metaphorical stance, we got it all over here. Even if you bummed out, like when I came to New York, the bums are smart. You know, they got cardboard houses with Reynolds wrap insulating the inside to keep warm in the wintertime. You know what I'm saying? So just his environment, for him to persevere and come through the fire with that. Imagine if he had resources, our type of resources. Remember, they come over here to get what we have, our resources. And when they get our resources, we see what happens when innovative people can take advantage of the American dollar or the European dollar.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, most of my interns are Indian, and I can tell you right now, they wear the same clothes day in, day out, and they grind real hard, man. You know, they live, you know, four people to a 2-bedroom apartment, and they grind hard. So, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know if anybody wants to disagree with that, man. I see it with my own eyes in IT. So,
I mean, it's multiple perspectives, though, right? Because I think that one thing that's shown is definitely the American camera that shows what's happening in Africa. It paints a certain picture. But kind of there's also another perspective that I don't think a lot of people consider because, like, especially Nigeria. Nigeria is heavily, a lot of Nigerians, especially those who have money, those individuals are extremely materialistic. Like they will buy, get, and very much so flaunt everything that they have in front of individuals. And they aren't coming from impoverished situations. They are like family members got compounds over there that with guards. And so I think that there are multiple perspectives. And I guess I always kind of try to speak out against, a one size fits all perspective of African culture. Because yeah, you do have those individuals who are humble and they grind and they build up from their knowledge and expertise, but you do also have a lot of boasting. You have a lot of materialistic. You have individuals who are not caring about anybody else but themselves and their family's name. So I think that there's multiple perspectives that are over there.
Yeah, definitely. Let me address this statement real quick from Mr. Cott. Y'all have to stop looking at this thing from a perspective of Black American versus countries. We do not control our environment or infrastructure. That is the issue. But you have to take into consideration, Mr. Cott, that a lot of the articles that we have covered come from people who are in dire poverty. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. We've covered several articles where you had the guys from Sudan who created a drone from scrap pieces of metal, from scrap pieces of junk, and they failed many times. The documentaries on Al Jazeera, and they got top-notch prize for it. They got their own innovation company now. We've covered several articles where guys are just doing phenomenal things that I don't see it happening here. They don't, at least I'm not seeing it. Maybe you guys might be seeing it here. I'm not seeing any of these hustlers out here doing something innovative. Maybe with the Pyrex pot they might be doing something, but outside of that, I don't see them doing anything innovative, man.
No, man, because if it's going to be anything innovative, dude, it's going to be in a startup environment. And straight up and down, this has been a topic that we've talked about quite a few times, and maybe we need to revisit it here, maybe in the coming month or so. But startup culture, there's a whole entire process as it relates to tech companies and going through the various phases of maturation, from startup to production, and we don't have culture. So you're right. There's no one, because we don't have that culture that cultivates technological innovations. There couldn't be anyone out here outside of a few tech mavericks, guys like myself, like ourselves, who hack around and do stuff and try to create stuff to put out there on the market or whatever. But our numbers are small, man. So unless we have a bona fide startup culture, nah, man. You're right. It's not there. It's not there like people think it is.
Nah.
Yeah. Good evening to everyone.
Hey, brother, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Jim?
I do want to respond to this comment about the crack era.
Yeah.
Look, Black people's problem did not start in the 1980s with the crack era. It just didn't. Modern Black issues, contemporary issues that Black people deal with did not start in the 1980s. Crack just highlighted the problems that were already there. Mm-hmm. And again, if you need proof of this, look no further than Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas. Mm-hmm. These men made at that time would have been equivalent of $1 billion a piece. This is before Freeway, Rick Ross, at least a decade before for him. Mm-hmm. These men collectively, individually, but as a collective, made $1 billion a piece at that time in selling heroin. And so this idea that somehow all of our problems began in the 1980s when the CIA flooded Black community with crack cocaine. Look, drugs have always been in Black society. I mean, if you even look back, if you read some of the memoirs of Malcolm X, he talked about how heroin took over Harlem. This was back in the 60s. Yep. Heroin destroyed Harlem, and that's how you got folks like Nicky Barnes, and a year or two after him, you got Frank Lucas, because Frank Lucas put Nicky Barnes out of business. Nicky Barnes learned the game from Bumpy Johnson. Mm-hmm. So these issues have always been present in Black society. It's just that we like to point to the fact that yeah, white society found a drug that they could criminalize black people on.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, that drug would never have been as successful or as accessible as it would have been if you can thank Freeway Rick Ross for that, because he was the one that created the whole, him and others like him were the ones that came up with the idea of cooking cocaine and turning it into crack cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we all know the story about how Richard Pryor burned himself up freebasing.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that somehow all of our problems began in the 1980s with crack cocaine is just wholesale bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. It's not even comments like his try to scapegoat lack of literacy. Freeway Ricky Ross couldn't even read until he was 25, 26 years old. How do you explain that when there's public libraries all over the place?
If you watched it, he did an interview about a year ago with Tariq Nasheed on his radio station, on his and he talked about he did not learn how to read until he was about 27 years old. Again, to just highlight what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
But he had been, before that, this man had been making the equivalent of over $1 million a day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yet he did not learn to read until it really became out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
He had already been locked up. The first time he got locked up, he managed to get out. He only did a few years, got out, still had plenty of money, went right back into the game, and then they finally decided to lock him up for good.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got out earlier, back in the early 2000s, or whenever it was somewhere in the 2000s when he got out. But the point is that, simply put, our problems did not begin, and we cannot continue to scapegoat this idea that somehow because we do not teach a culture of innovation and academic excellence, and this is a special shout out to the brother O'Shea and Sub-Zero 2629 who were talking about this earlier today. They did a stream where they had a whole study where they were showing like the amount of time students from every ethnic group spend studying while they're in undergrad. And black people were at the ADOS were at the very bottom, about 40 to 45 minutes a day. How the hell do you expect to become an engineer and you only spend 45 minutes a day trying to do linear algebra?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah. I've seen it myself. I just like brother Cyber guys were out of there after the first semester. That was it.
Yeah. Most black students, and specifically black males, usually fell out within the first semester of college.
Mm-hmm.
The black females tend to hang on a slightly bit longer, but black males are usually gone within the first few months.
Yeah.
And again, this is not about you crack cocaine or nothing like this. This is about what do we do at the very fundamental levels of black society within each and every family. Do we teach what it means to be academically sound, to be academically excellent, how to compete in the 21st century against people who you're going to be on their table, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese have been eating everyone's lunch in the year since the 2000s. Why? Because they have out innovated. They have invested wholesale into their people, and it's paying them dividends right now.
Mm-hmm. They turn out 1 million STEM graduates per year compared to the United States.
Yeah, the US at best turns out about what, maybe 100 grand. I think it was about a 10 for that, about 100 grand.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, they're outpacing you in STEM 10 to 1. Mm-hmm. And this is look, not to say that we don't have systemic issues we deal with. Of course we do. That's a given. But again, the stories you all are reading are from, I've been to many of these countries, and I don't know if people, you go to these countries, man, there are no damn roads.
Yeah, we just saw that in the video with the brother who made the electric wheelchair. There's no roads.
Yeah, I caught a glimpse of that when you guys were talking. And I mean, again, you go to most of these countries, man, they don't have paved roads. They barely have working water. You can't even get groundwater in many of these countries. They don't even have the ability to pull water out of the ground. That's why you get all these damn NGOs that come into these countries taking advantage of the people. Because some of the most basic of necessities, the most basic of infrastructure is not there, but yet they can turn out this. And our only response is, oh, it's these systemic issues. At what point? People are not going to want to hear that crap no more. Because the bill is coming due.
Hey, Cyberdyne has his hand up. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, it's pretty strong, Dr. Phoenix. Pretty strong. If I had to come on the tail end of that, because I see Mr. Cat had is, I guess, making the rebuttal that, you know, the point is not about controlling the infrastructure. I gotta ask a question then, right? I gotta set this question up for inspection. And you know, I'm interested if Mr. Cat can, you know, provide something back to this, or any one of us could hit on this. But I don't see that as an excuse. To me, that's kind of a cop out, because okay, so we don't control our infrastructure, but there's a Google. We don't control our infrastructure, but you know, there's opportunity because there's money. So I mean, help me to understand what the point is about the fact that they control the infrastructure. We don't control our infrastructure. What does that have to do? I think Dr. Phoenix hit the nail right on the head and called it right out on the wall. They own their infrastructure. Let's put it in perspective like this. Okay, they own their infrastructure, but they study more. They don't have as a robust infrastructure as we have, but they study more. They apply themselves more to the task to be done. We don't own our infrastructure, but we don't study. We have all the opportunity from here to, you know, Andromeda and back, but we don't study. So, you know, I don't understand that. That's okay. Somebody get this guy a link or something. But
no, he said he can't get on because his mic, he doesn't have a mic. But what we'll do is we'll hold on to this discussion, and we'll come back after the docket is completed, and we'll chop up game that way, because I see this a lot with a lot of ADOS people. They're always pushing back against these kind of comments that, you know, I have or other panelists have about the lack of innovation. I mean, we've talked about this since the inception of the since we started doing live streams, that you don't see a lot of innovative ideas really coming from ADOS at this point. Not saying it didn't happen after slavery. I mean, obviously you had a lot of innovators who drove Western society's development back then. But today, if you try to have a conversation with some guys, man, they got a lot of ADD, man. They not paying attention, don't want to read the articles. That's why we read the articles. Because if you left it up to them, they wouldn't read it. They don't even care. Some of these guys can't read. But the point of the matter here is, you can't sit here and talk about fighting white supremacy. You can't even read a book, man.
I'm sorry, brother.
You can't talk to infrastructure if you don't have the ability to code it and create the applications and put it in the cloud.
We had a brother come on and say, I don't need infrastructure, I just need water. I mean,
you know what, brother?
What?
You all did, like a broadcast you all did about a week ago. And you had referenced, I guess you guys were on another brother's channel, and there were cats talking crazy stuff about hunting squirrels and stuff like that. And I just listened to it. It was some crazy stuff. No offense to the brothers, but it was some crazy off the wall stuff. I mean, it just went out and the conversation went into the weeds pretty damn quick. But you know,
where else are you gonna go to get the squirrels?
Irrational responses to rational problems, you know, to real world problems. Very irrational responses. And that is a mark, that is an indelible mark of a people in decline, where you cannot see fundamentally how the world around you is changing and how you need to change with it. The world, everyone else is changing with the world. We're stagnant, and not even stagnant, we're regressive.
Yeah, I mean, you got dark skinned activists, going gonzo in the manosphere.
I don't need to say
Man,
no.
that's that new shit right there.
Yeah, man. I mean,
No, say it.
hundreds and hundreds of people watching dark skinned activism.
But again, I mean, we're the principal consumers of technology, but we're not the innovators and the creators of technology. There is something wrong where you're going to have this convergence of ignorance and the inability to create the technology, as opposed to those who have the ability to understand it and create it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're living in a world and in a society where science and technology dominates. Nothing against the folks who believe in esotericism, but again, this is not the place for that. This is not the world you're living in. The world you're living in, they're experimenting with ways of using teleportation.
Mm-hmm.
Once that's mastered, I mean, this is a game changer across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for military, especially military application of teleportation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest problems with the military has is personnel and troop and equipment movement, moving equipment from one part of the world to the other.
Even Will Smith's latest movie, Gemini Man, points to this very thing, that creating super soldiers, man, out of black men.
Look, I didn't see that new Fast and the Furious movie, but they had the brother Idris Elba.
Oh, that thing was so horrific, man. Oh my God, that thing was horrific.
I mean, he's running around, but I mean, we're on the cusp of this. I mean, they've been talking about this for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got scientists in China who created designer babies that are immune to HIV and AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world we're living in. And the average black person, if you even ask them to tell you what Down syndrome was, or what does it mean, what's the actual technical term for Down syndrome, they couldn't even tell you that. They couldn't even tell you what a goddamn what mitosis is. They couldn't even. Folks love talking about this damn immaculate conception that black women can somehow miraculously do these days, but they can't even tell you that. They can't even tell you what stage of meiosis that the eggs are frozen in. And so when it's fertilized, what stage does it continue from? Negroes can't tell you that, but they love to tell you that some esoteric bull crap. But I mean, look, I don't want to make this it's kind of becoming a bit of a rant, but I just listened to some brothers talking today, and like I said, special shout out to the brother O'Shea, because he talked about this exact same issue earlier today with another brother, and so again, I mean, this is a problem. And we cannot continue to use this excuse of crack cocaine, white supremacy. White supremacy does not determine whether or not your kid doesn't know how to read at 17 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. DE Raptor, you have your hand raised. Please be brief, because I need to get to the next article. I guess DE Raptor went away.
Hey, just go ahead to the next article. You said you're going to deal with this at the end of the.
Yeah, we're gonna chop up game, man. We're gonna chop up some serious game.
I'll hold on.
Yes, sir. All right, this one is from interestingengineering.com. Blockchain to track your purchases to their origin. Consumers are more and more preoccupied with how products are made after decades during which price and quality were the two primary attributes they look for in products. Nowadays, the demand for sustainability produced goods is on the rise. Contributing to this increased awareness are both a greater concern for the environment and also frequent scandals involving labor rights violations in the supply chains of some of the best known brands like Apple, H&M, and Nike. But telling sustainable products apart from their less sustainable counterparts is hard. After all, sustainably sourced or produce goods often don't look any different. Many green labels and certifications seek to address this issue, but they are generally used for products that come in packaging. How would you stick a label on, say, a potato? If you had to sell it in packaging in order to show it's sustainable, wouldn't that defeat the purpose of the label in the first place? And despite the complicated audit process required to get such labels, they are often as fallible and corruptible as the context in which they are awarded. But what about the goods like cut flowers, timber, diamonds, or fish? How can we tell if these products are sustainable? That their production compiled with the law, for instance, that our furniture is not made out of illegally logged timber, and that the workers who labored to bring them to the shelves of our local supermarkets or shop were fairly treated. Ensuring transparency and traceability across supply chains in our globalized economy is no easy feat. Luckily, an entire suite of technological solutions is emerging to help solve this problem. Blockchain to the rescue. Over the past 5 years or so, several global companies and some startups have developed blockchain-based applications to help track goods across supply chains. A pioneer in this area is IBM, which has established various such initiatives on its own and in collaboration with other companies. For instance, the IBM Food Trust is a blockchain-based platform that aims to ensure traceability and sustainability in the supply chains of foods and beverages. In addition, in August 2018, IBM launched TradeLens in collaboration with Masaryk, the largest shipping company in the world. The aim of this blockchain-based platform is to promote more efficient and secure global trade, IBM said in the press release. Aside from IBM, recognizable names like diamond company De Beers and retailer Walmart have joined the blockchain bandwagon. I'm not going to read this whole thing because I think we covered this before, but basically they are leveraging this digital transformation infrastructure to better track all your purchases. So the cobalt that comes from out the Congo would be traced all the way back to determine the quality and the source and the origin of the natural resources itself. So blockchain is a game changer. We covered an article a few weeks ago that basically said from a Nigerian Senate committee or a member of parliament that said that blockchain is a pan-Africanist tool and that they should be leveraging it to advance the continent. So we know that blockchain is in high demand right now. If you're not following Lionel and the blockchain study group, you should actually be doing so because you're going to get all the knowledge necessary to compete in these areas. All right, let me get to this next article. All right, this next one's from Forbes. The shift from fiat finance to blockchain, the era of trustless lending. The financial market has been going through significant changes in the last couple of years due to blockchain becoming more involved in the industry. So many financial firms have turned to cryptocurrency for the sake of providing a better service to their customers. The lending market has been stuck in a whirlpool of challenges for years. The slow transaction times and the downsides of traditional banking and financing have brought significant burdens to customers, including expensive fees and lengthy clarification periods. A decentralized system based on blockchain and cryptocurrency seems to be an effective solution for these issues. With the use of blockchain-based platforms, users don't have to depend on intermediaries or wait for days to have their transactions clarified. A normal ACH payment process life cycle is about 72 hours just to clear. So that's what they're talking about. Besides providing better speed and reliability, blockchain technology benefits the financial world by removing the middleman and thus making transactions much cheaper. It is evident that there is a gap in the sphere of financial services that can only be filled by something as revolutionary as blockchain. Based in Poland, the Marshall Lion Group is a company operating in the non-banking or non-bank lending market since 2015 and have recently decided to move to the blockchain with its new platform in the MLGC token. They decided to address the common issues caused by traditional lending system, including the need for guarantees and intermediaries and the involvement of third parties. They offered a blockchain-based platform that provides loan requirements for enterprises and individuals. They mentioned that blockchain is used in three main areas of their work: private sector for loans of 1 to 6 months, public sector for loans of 3 to 6 months, and hybrid loans of 1 to 6 months. The use of smart contracts has allowed them to automate time-consuming processes as well as reduce decision times. Thus, they have accepted blockchain as a fast and transparent solution to their services. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but the you're seeing more microfinancing and institutions come out of blockchain development and has allowed them to cut out a lot of the overhead. All right, let me jump to this next one. This one is for Naked Security. Soldering spy chips inside firewalls is now a cheap hack, shows researchers. The tiny Tiny 85 chip doesn't look like the next big cyber threat facing the world, but sneaking one on to a firewall motherboard would be bad news for security were it to happen. In fact, this has already happened as part of a project by researcher Monte Elkins, designed to prove that this sort of high-end hardware hack is no longer the preserve of nation states. Elkins soldered the 5mm by 5mm Tiny 85 chip from an Arduino board to his test firewall circuit board just in front of the system's serial port. After reading his account of the proof of concept in Wired, it's not hard to grasp why soldering tiny chips to circuit boards is a threat. They are impossible to see, let alone detect once they are installed inside the equipment. The proof of concept is also cheap, requiring little more than some know-how, access to the supply chain of current products, and a few $100s for parts. Rumors of secret chips or secret interfaces on legitimate chips have long been the stuff of legend. But the implication of Elkin's work is that anyone could now do this. The hack that can be achieved by Elkin's chip is simple but powerful. Where the firewall boots up, it impersonates a security administrator accessing the configurations of the firewall by connecting their computer directly to that port. Then the chip triggers the firewall's password recovery feature, creating a new admin account, gaining access to the firewall's settings. With that level of access, a firewall would be pretty much in the paws of an attacker who could configure it to allow remote access or disable security. Even if that access were detected, the fact it depends on hardware might make it impossible to get rid of, short of disabling the serial port or removing the chip itself. It's not the kind of attack that would scale well, requiring hackers to physically solder chips to boards for every compromised device they want to subvert. Then again, the right firewall, is all that it would take to aid a major network incursion. So Gabe is a senior security engineer. What's your take on this?
No, I'm not. I'm not a senior security engineer.
Okay.
I'm a consultant. Well, but
something.
but not an engineer. It's a little different.
Okay.
But it's interesting because Monte Elkins, he was actually one of my instructors for one of my science classes that I took. And it's interesting because that particular his like he's pretty much like the highest as it goes, as it concerns hardware hacking. So soldering a chip to bypass firewall admin access is not, the parts might be cheap, it might be easy to solder, but it also requires a bit of capability to, one, have physical access to the firewall, right? So someone has to be in your server room, has to know what firewall is the target, the one that will allow them access to the particular network that they're looking at. And two, I mean, who is walking around with a soldering iron, solder, and chips that know exactly where to put things on a particular device? I mean, it would take
an insider threat.
Yeah, but insider threat, sure. But like even insiders, they have certain checks and balances. I mean, to go inside of a particular server room with critical assets, you have to have like badge reader access. There's some type of checks and balances to individuals being able to access certain critical digital assets. So yeah, sure, it can happen. It can be done. It's a proof of concept. But one, it does take a level of expertise that isn't very common. Two, it would take physical access to a particular environment. And three, I'm just not seeing the wide, like I said in the article, it's not like a very wide scalability of that particular type of attack, because typically hackers and individuals who are malicious, they want the easiest low-hanging fruit to get into an environment rather than going just all out, soldering iron, microchips, put it on the firewall to bypass. So
well, because this is a supply chain attack, right? So I used to work in a VAR, right? So vendor added reseller, value added reseller, right? So we would receive all of these components and whatnot, and we would have to sell it to the customer, right? Big customers, being big enterprise. We have access to all of this hardware, so we have the ability to actually do something like this, right? If I'm a bad guy and I know somebody on the inside, like the article we covered about AT&T, where a foreign state actor was paying millions of dollars to the employees at AT&T to unlock phones and whatnot, to sell them on the black market and whatnot, to compromise them. That's pretty capable. That's a pretty capable attack.
I'm sorry, I think you dropped out for a second. I was asking, do all of you guys have that capability to solder that particular type of microchip onto a firewall?
When I was back then, you could do that. But nowadays,
you could do it, but I'm saying that capability to do it, understanding how to program the chip, understanding where to solder it on the board.
If you're an insider threat, you have all that inside knowledge.
No, you don't. Not a lot of people do. So my question,
but what I'm saying is, if you are an insider threat, you already have that knowledge. That's your job. Your job is to go in there and sabotage.
But the scenario that you just presented, you said that you and your team were given all of these devices before they went out to a company, right?
Right.
So my question was, do you guys, any of you know how to do this particular attack, or knew exactly where to do these, like have that type of capability?
Not to my, myself personally, no. What those other guys did, senior guys did, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. It's not a matter of whether or not we knew. It's a matter if the insider threat knows. If the insider threat's already in the environment, you're already screwed.
It's not common. I'm telling you, Monte is he's literally won awards with doing this type of stuff, just proving like little IoT and hardware hacks.
It's not common, but it's a supply chain attack. That's all the article is really pointing out, is that it's a supply chain attack. How Israel and other nation states attack each other, man. They do this exact thing.
I don't know. I'm not seeing it, but sure.
All right. Let me get to this next article. This one is from CNBC.com. We're all at risk when 65% of stressed out cybersecurity and IT workers are thinking about quitting, tech exec warns. Where are you going, Gabe? A recent
That's
report
funny.
I'm
found,
still here. Huh?
no, I was being facetious.
Oh.
A recent report found that the average tenure of a chief information security officer, a CISO, is only 18 to 24 months, citing constant stress and urgency of the job as the core reasons. For comparison, the average tenure of a chief financial officer is 6.2 years, and the average tenure of a chief executive officer is 8.4 years. The revolving door is not limited to the C-suite when it comes to key tech roles. A recent report from the Pomenon Institute found that 65% of IT and security professionals consider quitting due to burnout. I have been there. And there are nearly 3 million unfilled cybersecurity positions are at companies worldwide. Beyond the massive pressure CISOs are under to keep their organizations and customers secure, the talent shortage for skilled CISOs means frequent recruitment to new jobs, with offers up to $16.5 million in salary and profit sharing. So you know what Gabe's making. Between CISOs being aggressively recruited and a large percentage of the security workforce weighing their employment options, not to mention a growing and increasingly volatile landscape that requires the top security leadership to manage and mitigate, organizations can't afford to make the wrong choice when it comes to hiring and retaining a CISO. Consider recent high-profile data breach at a large financial corporation. It was reported that staff suggested the CISO, who came from a federal government background, clashed with employees. Prior to the breach taking place, employees raised concerns about a high turnover rate within the cybersecurity team, which included about 1/3 of entire team staff in 2018. To some close to the organization, this and other missteps indicate that the breach did not entirely come out of the blue. I've heard about this. As security moves closer to the center of the organization, leadership and management skills have become just as important as tactical security knowledge and execution. Organizations need to consider whether the CISO candidate would be a cultural fit. Strong CISO candidates will demonstrate the ability to find, hire, and retain the right people to execute on security strategy and create culture in which employees are trusted and empowered security practitioners. Ask them how they motivate their teams to create a positive outcome-driven environment without burning out employees. Leadership and execution styles that clash with the security team and other business leaders could prove to be detrimental to a team morale and effectiveness, putting the organization at heightened risk. I've seen this. CISOs must also serve as the go-to source on issues that may impact executive level decision. For example, they must proactively address recent high-profile breaches, vulnerabilities, as well as legal and regulatory matters, and how these issues affect the business and what, if any, next steps must be taken to address them. Ask the candidate what issues they are currently tracking and how they would approach communication of these issues to the board. Although CISOs are in high demand when you're hiring, it's important to closely examine cybersecurity performance metrics from the CISO's previous organization, just like you would expect a chief commercial officer candidate to point to sales numbers or chief marketing officer candidate to be able to speak to campaign performance numbers. It is critical that CISO candidates be able to communicate their previous organization's security performance in measurable, meaningful way. Take the time to find the CISO who will take a measurement-driven approach to security performance management, communicate effectively to the board and other executives, and has a leadership strategy that aligns with your current security culture. So I'm not going to read this whole thing because I think it's hilarious that 2/3 of your IT staff, of your security staff, is actually considering quitting or have already quit. I've seen this myself. I've seen security teams get gutted out not because they've been fired, but because people have had enough and they've tired of fighting over resources and getting pushback.
Gives a whole new meaning to looking out the front door, huh?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's such a competitive market that, you know, a lot of times people don't have to stay put in toxic working environments. Like, you're getting hits all the time from different recruiters, from different resources online. So people don't have to stay in places, especially in security, in places which are causing a bit of detrimental to their, you know, work-life balance, or just overall, just like we said in the article, that leadership style. If you don't like your leader, if you don't like your manager, you don't like your CISO, you can just dip anytime and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and the thing is, people look at your resume and they say, well, you know, this guy likes to job hop, so I don't know if I really want to take him on. But that's the nature of the market now. It's very it's very gig based. I work consistently on projects. Projects that are usually 6 months to maybe 2 years, and I've seen disasters. It's just absolute disasters. Somebody made the wrong choice because they were buddies with this other person at another company, and the product never worked. It was vaporware, so therefore it's not usable. And now, how do you explain millions of dollars lost on a project to leadership? And leadership, you know, it wanted to go all in on this. It's a struggle. It's a real struggle, especially when you have data that is unmasked, passing through vulnerable endpoints that it should not be touching, and then you have to kind of report that up. Somebody has to take the fall for that. So
yeah, I think that definitely points to those metrics that it was speaking of, like with CISOs, and that's becoming more and more of an emerging trend with CISOs and directors and even managers, is tracking what are your security metrics, what are you keeping track of, how are your metrics playing into your day-to-day activities for your security actions. Like, that's very important, because it's like a lot of times people say, hey, let's do this because this is regulatory guidance. This is what our regulators say. We're following HIPAA, or we're following NERC SIP, or we're following something else, some other type of regulatory guidance, but they don't really know. They aren't able to measure the effectiveness of those particular actions that they're taking. Right, we're collecting full PCAP on our whole entire environment. And we have all types of huge beefy servers that are super duper expensive for management and just expensive to purchase. But what is the effectiveness of collecting all this data? Maybe we can just collect NetFlow data, which is so much smaller in size, but also gives a good visibility of what's happening and who's talking on your network. So, you know, so like, what metric are you using in order to measure your security actions?
We have to measure it by incidents and events.
Here and there. I think it only matters on industry. But yeah, I think that is one, sure.
Yeah, that's the main thing that we look at, is events and incidents. How many events were generated for the quarter versus how many incidents were responded to. And how
is that in healthcare, or
no, that's across all industries I've worked in. I've worked in finance, I've worked in healthcare, and I've worked in big pharma, and I've worked in tech startups. So they always look at how many events generated, how many incidents will be responding to, and why, how much is it costing us, right? Because we have to pay per ticket.
So that's very much so focused on security operations, right? That's like the internal company operate, but like to a security program, operations is just kind of one of the particular sectors, right? Because then you have, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say SecOps is the most costly though. It's the most costly of your expenditures. So if you're spending a lot of money on SecOps, you need to have some kind of answer, because SecOps eats up a lot of your profits, or eats up a lot of your budget. And if you're eating up a lot of your budget due to false positives and true positives and things of that nature, you need to figure out a actual presentable metric that would put that into context. At least from my experience, other forms of security is more about the services end. How much to be?
Yeah, and that's why I say it's very much so dependent upon industry, because I know some organizations spend a lot. So like within like nuclear, right? Every, I think, year and a half or 2 years, there is a Nuclear Energy Institute, or NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commissions, there is a huge inspection that happens. That they inspect pretty much your whole cybersecurity program and evaluate it to see if you should stay online. So there's a lot of money that goes into preparing with security assessors or program assessors that come in before that big inspection. But even when the inspectors come, there's a lot of different resources that are brought in order to manage that, and in order to even like upgrades, right? So again, only matters. So there's services that come in, individuals, they bring in consultants, they bring in contractors. So that's why I just say it only matters on your industry. So
yeah, let's chop up game, man. Because brother Eli is here.
Sure.
I know that DE Raptor had his hand up before, and Cyberdyne also had his hand up before. So let's start with DE Raptor when he had his hand up, and then we'll go to
Is Mr. Cat?
Yeah, he's here. He's here.
Brother Eli is Mr. Cat.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh,
He's
okay,
here.
that's what's
He's
up,
here.
bro. Hey, welcome, man. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's here. So then we'll go to Cyberdyne, and then we'll go to Dr. Phoenix, and then we'll go to brother Eli.
Good night, guys.
What's going on, bro?
Uh-oh. You there?
I think Black Shingle left.
I think he said good night.
Yeah, he said good night.
Yeah.
DE Raptor, are you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
You had your hand raised before, so
Yeah, okay. Well, but it's something we were talking that we had, kind of took a detour to. We were talking about that subject last night, and that one of the problems we have is that we tend to, we don't have enough. Let's say 80% of our people cannot really effectively communicate because they can't read, and so when you're having a conversation, they don't know how to frame the question, or when they hear a conversation between, like the conversation you're having here, when it's better to ask a question, they don't ask a question, they make a criticism, because it's that lack of comprehension, that because they never really took the time to read and really understand the language that they speak. And that's a big problem. A lot of people don't want to admit it and then take steps to correct the problem. And in the case of people in America, there's we will learn all we can about sports, so we can make an argument about a basketball game. How great is this player? How many points he scored in his career? How many points he scored in his best game? But we will not put the effort in to improve our own skills. Even when we can see that it's going to benefit us. We don't. It's almost like we were talking about people passing on wealth from one generation to another, and they don't. A lot of people don't really want to take that. You don't want to spend less so you can put some money in the bank so your children will have something to when they come up and suppose your kids want to start a business, when you pass by and when you're gone, you left them nothing, because you wanted to enjoy yourself to the point where, you know what, I'm going to live. I'm going to live large. But what the problem is that our competitors in the world, and this is a world economy now, this is not just an economy in the neighborhood or in the state or in the country. This is a world economy now. and the competitors they're not taking any prisoners. Nobody's taking prisoners nowadays. You know, you will see that your competitors come. You was talking about, Mike was talking about this, even the Indians that or Pakistanis, or you know, he's mentoring them. He's training them at work, and these guys will, you know, they gonna show up and do the best job they can. They're gonna take it all in. They might not come to work every day in a suit, but they're going to be there to make sure that they get this information and use it.
They came there with the skill set, DE. The difference here that, you know, one of them told me this summer was that they can spot a fake Indian from a real one. They can spot the ones who come here to actually put in work versus the ones who are lazy and rather work at 7-Eleven. So those are the guys that they don't associate with. They don't like those people at all. So they cut those people. They basically marginalize those people from any sort of endeavors that they may get into, multi-million-dollar startups and stuff like that. They don't include those people at all. So we don't do that in the Black community. We kind of drag people along with us, and you know, you're paid in the burden of
not
tax.
drag. No, we don't drag people along with us. We drag them down. If one of us rise up and say, look, man, I'm tired of doing this. You know, from the time you're going to school, you live in the same neighborhood, and you say, I want to get out of this neighborhood. So you go in and you hit the books, and you're studying, and it's the other kids in the neighborhood, the other parents in the neighborhood. They come to your daughter and say, what's wrong with your son? He don't hang out with the other kids in the neighborhood. You know, what he think he is. And the other kids also have the same attitude towards you. You know, were you trying to be white, something? You know, so we drag each other down instead of watching one of us rise, helping that kid rise, and even try and follow in his footsteps. They don't do that.
Let's go to Cyberdyne.
Just real quick on what he said, because I was actually going to comment about the hardware vulnerability, which is highly possible. But you know, it's all good that people do that, DE, until years later, that same little kid, same little boy, grows up and goes back to visit his mother, his father, his family, and the place he grew up in. And he sees some of the kids that he grew up with, went to school with, walking around in their downtown, halfway delusional, not knowing whether they're here or somewhere on the other side of the goddamn on universe. It's funny how the tables turn in life. But anyway, no, like I said, I was going to talk about the vulnerability, but since we have, you know, the member, Mr. Cat, had joined in, I kind of wanted to stay in lockstep where we were with the conversation. I think that what was addressed was, you know, concerns about infrastructure, and I think at that point I had rebutted respectfully and said, you know, I don't see us not owning our own infrastructure versus another country owning their technological infrastructure as an excuse, because as Dr. Phoenix had pointed out, if he's still with us, you know, it comes down to who's applying themselves more. And, you know, the fact is that those who are applying themselves more, they're having the better outcome in terms of realizing, producing something. So that's all I have to say. I want to give up the rest of what I had to say to Mr. Cat if it's his time.
It's actually not Mr. Cat's time, but we'll go to Dr. Phoenix because he's next.
Sure.
Yep.
No, let the brother, he can speak. So it's fine.
All right.
I can wait.
Mr. Cott.
All right, so I mean, a lot was said. I know let's go back to the crack era, man, because I know it was the brother was saying that crack didn't have that much of an effect on Black America. I mean, what I would like to ask, how old are you? Because I was alive during that time, and I remember what life was like before crack and after crack. Now I heard you saying something about Nicky Barnes and those brothers in New York, but then, New York is not the world. I'm from Miami. I'm from the South. We didn't know nothing about Nicky Barnes or Frank Lucas and none of that. We didn't know nothing about the Crips, Bloods, none of that.
Let's let Dr. Phoenix answer.
Again, last I checked, Frank Lucas was from the South. He was from.
But he did his work in the North, though, brother. He did it in New York. He didn't do it in North Carolina.
You can't cut him off. You got to let him.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I didn't say the crack cocaine era didn't matter. Did not have an effect on Black society. I pointed out that yes, they used the crack cocaine era as a means to incarcerate Black men. Yeah, that's for sure. I have family members who came from that area. From that era. So I know that as a fact. I grew up in, again, I'll say it for the 1,000th time, I grew up in Chicago, so you can't tell me nothing about the crack cocaine era, because I know what it did in Chicago. I had family members that came up through it who lived in the projects of Chicago. So, I mean, again, I think when we have these conversations, I think we speak as if, yeah, obviously you're older than me, but I'm not so young that I don't know what the effect of crack cocaine has been on Black society, and certainly the effect it has had even in my family. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so let me move on from there, because really that was not my point. My point was not being able to control your environment, not being able to control what happens when you don't control your environment. You don't have control over your infrastructure, hard and soft. What happened in the crack era is that when that started going down, like say if brothers like that are on this panel were controlling the police force, the governor's office, and all that stuff during that time, and we saw something like that happen, and we will be able to cut it off in the same way that these white folks are trying to cut off this meth epidemic. They trying to deal with it how way they they gonna finally see fit. I think they're trying to do more of the rehab thing and all that stuff now. My point is when you don't control your environment, when you don't have control over your infrastructure and all that type of stuff, it leaves you vulnerable. Right? So right now we're talking about, Black America being behind, but we're still in the same situation that we were during the crack era. So we can't do anything to really take us out of this situation as things are right now, because we don't really have control. We don't have control over the tax dollars, where we're gonna send these tax dollars to concentrate on the programs that we want to steer these young kids into and things like that. We don't have control over the school boards and all that type of stuff, where we can say, well, we don't want the kids studying liberal arts and stuff. We want them in the STEM program. We're not. There is no we, like we saying the BAIO. There's no we. We're a bunch of scattered individuals as black people in America at this time. But if we were in control over our environment, over our soft infrastructure, the hard infrastructure, then we will be able to enact programs and things of that nature on a wide level that we could bring the people together, because right now we're unable to do that. That was my point. I wasn't trying to say that anything you were saying was wrong, brother. My point was that, where do we go from here more than anything? And I was saying that if we don't get control over these things, You know, in the same way, like when you talk about that, the Chinese, what's the Chinese guy Mao when he started doing the cultural revolution in order to get everybody on the same page. There has to be something that get us all on the same page, because right now we're not on the same page, and that's the problem.
They sacrifice millions of people, brother. If you understand what I mean, they sacrifice millions.
Well, I'm not saying do that, but it has to be something done in order to get everybody on the same page. You know, and brothers that like brothers like y'all on the Black Brain Thrust. I trust. I mean, y'all. You know, you guys have the intellect in order to start thinking along these lines. That's why I always try to catch the program whenever I can.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know you were a watcher. I'm glad that you subscribe to us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Bro, while I agree with what you said.
Want to say?
Oh, sorry, Nago. Go ahead. I spoke already. Go ahead.
Hey, Nago.
Okay.
Yo.
All right, what's up, fellas? What's going on, y'all?
Chilling.
What's up, fams?
What's going on, Chief?
You family.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, you know, you were talking about the whole crack era, the drug era, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm about just a couple of years away from 60, so I can say when I was a kid running around in Harlem, as a kid going to Colonial Pool, 7, 8 years old. This was in the 60s. I saw us before we saw the drug epidemic. I saw around 68.
Oh, I think the brother's breaking up.
Generation Z. I mean,
Nagon, we're losing you. You might have to log off and log back on, or you might have to call in through the number.
Well, wait, you can't hear me?
We're losing. You're losing you.
You were breaking up, brother.
We missed about 60 seconds of what you're saying.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me better now? I don't know.
We can.
Oh, you can. Okay, I'm just moving a little closer to my modem. Maybe it's just my modem. Can you hear me better?
We can.
You can. Okay. All right. I said, you know, we were around in this. You know, I saw the 60s. I saw how the drugs came in. I watched this. I didn't read it. I watched it. You know, I watched this happen as a kid, and then kind of growing up, saw how this thing came through. Drugs came through our community. I mean, it really did hit us. People said control. It was a political movement to get us out of it, to get us in there, to really hurt us. You know, it really was. Nixon and them sat back and said, listen, man, you know, we're going to blame a lot of this on Black people. But they put a lot of heroin, it was heroin first. That's what really got us. And then we had a crack epidemic. But what bothers me more than anything else, when we talk about Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas and Gene Garner and all these guys, people my father knew, New York Willie, all of them, these were the guys that were doing a lot of the dirty work in your community. So we did a lot of that to ourselves. We didn't have to sell drugs. These guys made the choice to do this. They did that. So we lost control of the community through agents that were acting on behalf of the nefarious powers that put the drugs into our community. But we had these brothers, they sold the stuff. They didn't build a community, they didn't build hospitals, they didn't build housing, they didn't do that. They came through and made hundreds of millions of dollars on drugs, squandered all the money, they got thrown in jail, many got killed, and they left such wreckage in their wake. It was kind of unbelievable. It was unbelievable what we saw. We had these were your supposedly your business people. You know, I don't even like use that term to pookies and ravies. I don't even want to get into that. But these were the guys who came into the community, who were there, who sold drugs to their own people. And then you had a whole generation of people who grew up behind this. And then you see people calling them businessmen of your community and all that, who were in there selling drugs in their community. Who were they selling to? They weren't out there selling to the white folks and come back to the community and keeping your community safe. They were selling to they were selling their own community. So, you know, we had to look at that. So we had control and we lost a lot of it. And a lot of that was because some people in our community chose to take the worst path possible, and they made a lot of money. Ultimately, it didn't mean a whole lot because it meant a lot of death and destruction. And then on top of that, then they decided to jail you. So the attack that was based, they used our own agents to do it. So we have to look at that, and we have to take a strong look at that. And I think some of the younger people today kind of understand some of this. We have to get back to basics. I just bring this up because I saw how this happened. Much of our problems were with drugs. After heroin, that was the first one that really hit us. Then as soon as we started coming off of that, then came in the crack cocaine era. And you can sit down and listen to people like Freeway Ricky Ross, who's walking around all over the country today, giving speeches and talking about this, and literally chronicling how this really went down and the role that he played, and the role that the government and all these play. These guys, and now he's speaking against what he did, but these were the agents who came in and did this. Our own people did some of this. We gotta come to grips with some of that. And if we're going to move forward as a community, we can't have that. We got to close ranks. We have to close ranks on this. And I see some of that, but we need a lot more of that. We got to call that out. We can't just say white supremacy and all that kind of stuff. That sounds good and that motivates a lot of people. But the agents of the biggest white supremacists that I've known, I'm sorry to say this, have been many of our own people. And they did immense damage, you have to understand what $200-300 million really means, especially back then. It's equivalent to $1 billion today. Where did all that go? How did our community benefit? No one benefited from that. No one did. So I just bring that point up because I want to make sure that we keep this thing very real and talk about what's really going on. And if we want to look at solutions, we have to look at all corners of what we're doing in our community. And some of this, we're going to have to take some very hard line on some of what goes on in our community. Certain modes of thinking, lines of thinking that we have today have to be eradicated. We have to eradicate some of the ways we think and how we see, our community and ourselves. We have to eradicate some of that. Some of this may take some very harsh movements to be done, but that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. In the Great Leap Forward, or the cleaning up of the opium wars, when the communists took over, Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping and these people who were all part of that movement. Their people were drugged out. They were the opium wars. And all these rich white countries made a lot of money off of China, and they decided they were going to get rid of that. They were going to get them out. And they just started killing their addicts. They killed their drug dealers. They killed them. They were cutting their heads off and shooting them in the middle of fields around crowds and letting people know this is how far we're willing to go to stop this. That's how they got off of it. Very harsh. Yep. I just bring that up because these are facts. I know, Mike, you want somebody else to get in. I just want to put this thing where it's got to be. We got to think about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we covered an article probably over a year or so ago in Kenya, where the police are actually executing drug dealers in the street, openly in the street, open execution. We know that Roberto Duterte of the Philippines, the head of the Philippines, openly admitted on YouTube that he enjoys killing drug dealers. He hates them.
He says that, but we have people walking around in our community today, talking about, the drug dealer was the businessman in my community. This cannot stand.
Well, they call them in the manosphere. They call them street entrepreneurs.
These are literally street demons, and we should deal with them in very, very harsh terms.
Let's go to Cyberdyne, and then we'll go to DE Raptor, and then we'll go to Dr. Phoenix.
But hopefully you understand. Hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from with respect.
No, I share your sentiments exactly, brother.
Man. I watched over the last 50 years. I've watched this.
All right, go ahead, Cyberdyne.
No, same here. My thing is this. During that same era, we we had men of renown, Mark Dean, computer scientist, John Henry Thompson, computer scientist. My whole thing with this, because I saw my mom's husband. I saw the guys whose last name I take sniffing and stuffing cocaine down the toilet, with the long leather jackets and doing business up here on the East Coast. My whole thing is that, we without excuse, because what's gonna happen, right? You go out here to some of these clubs on a Friday night, or go to some of these neighborhoods around the country. I went to school down south and kind of been everywhere. Go to some of these neighborhoods where these guys got these drugs, and you go in there, you're gonna have to go in there. You'll be a fool to go in there empty-handed, talking about uplifting the community and doing this and doing that. And so, we have to take it by force, metaphorically speaking, but again, with, some slick initiatives, because right now we're sensationalized with the Black community at large is sensationalized with the spoils of the drug trade, or the spoils that these hustlers got. Right? My thing is this: we can talk about these hustlers. Ain't none of these, if what nobody doing it like El Chapo. So if you ain't supplying, the money looks good, them couple billions look good, but if you ain't supplying nations and countries with this stuff, it's all very shallow. If it wasn't about the imagery, think about it. These white guys or other cultures out there got billions, but we don't see them flaunting. We barely see them with the alligator on the shirt. You know what I'm saying? With the polo man on the shirt. But they got billions. But they got the penny loafers and the boat shoes, right? They got the companies. They got the infrastructure. The people see these drug dealers, and they got the money and the resources. But what else do they see? They see the diamond necklace. They see the gold watch. They see the Rolex watch. They see the cars. They see the Rolls Royces. They see the woman on the arm. You know what I'm saying? And so they see the spoils and all that. But there's really nothing behind it. You know what I'm saying? And not to say too much, speaking as someone who's been in some of them pissy hallways, you know what I'm saying? People they're not in love with the act. They're in love with what the projection is from a successful, from what you can be fooled as is a successful drug dealer. The life, the lights, the camera, the action, the fast pace, to be able to do what you want to do because you have the money. And the bottom line is this: we don't need another, and I hope the cats ain't thinking I'm hating, but it just is what it is, man. I don't need another Jeezy. I don't need another rap cat from the community saying the same shit. I'm 40. I came up off A-Bar and MJG and all them guys, Jay-Z and all them, Nas. But I don't need to hear another rap cat coming up spinning the same tales that they were spinning back in the 1990s, early 2000s, and just putting the same spin, a new spin on the same shit, and we ain't going nowhere. That's really what it is. People are deceived to feeling like, oh yeah, it's got to be the new such and such. It's got to be the new such and such. And I think they're gonna just said it. To me, a lot of the cats, they doing the same thing today. They just doing it with music too. They selling us out. You songs send you to prison. Songs getting you shot up.
You are talking the real deal. You're talking about the programming of these people.
That's right.
Programming their minds.
That's
programming their minds on this. That's gotta end.
Same shit. It's the same shit. And
keep talking.
They doing the same thing. They doing the same thing. And so, yeah, if we're gonna take action, like I said, hey, I got development background, systems background, fine. I'll be willing to do what, hey, some of those other cultures out there, and if I'm gonna reach the children, okay, fine. I'll subtly create a program. I'll subtly create some storylines to start counteracting and say, you know what, painting, make it a story. You know, here's this kid, or here's this whatever, here's this drug dealer person, here's the life you want to pursue, and let's pump them full of that. Because, you know, that's what they're doing with the music, the drug dealers. It's all glamorized, and so that's really the fight, right? But I'm on mute because.
Nah, man. You just killed it right there. That's the main game, the programming of what's happening. I think Dr. Phoenix just said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Frank Lucas, his people talking about the South, how this was an enterprise-wide game. Didn't make any difference where you came from. This thing was enterprise-wide. Frank Lucas, in order to fight against the Italian mafia and the others here in New York to control the drug trade, where he was literally keeping this stuff, trafficking with his own people, he was bringing up a whole crew of people from the South, and they called them the Georgia Boys. The Georgia Boys were Frank Lucas's not only relatives, close cousins, but a lot of the people that he was grabbing for the backwoods dudes, arming them up, and he was walking around with an army. The Italians were looking to see just how stacked up that he was and had so many people in the streets. And these were straight up dead out the South, Geechees coming right at it. He was grabbing and putting guns in their hands and had hundreds in the streets running around. The Italian mafia, the Bonanno crime family primarily, and the Gambino crime family, sat back and said, listen, we're not going to be able to match these dudes. They're coming up here. These guys are trying to put a thousand Negroes in the streets, you know, and we ain't gonna be able to fight them. So what did they do? They sat down to control the drug trade as well, started ratting these guys out and bringing in, and got the feds in and turned the feds in on these guys to lock them down, and then had the Italians and these guys trying to fight over who was going to control the drug business. But you had a black gangster who could put literally 1,500 to 2,000 men in the street. And he didn't do that to protect his community. He came in there to attempt to further control the drug trade and drug out his people, where he could have easily sat down and knocked the Italians out the box and a few others and protected his community with that. All right, and taken all that money and done a whole lot of others. They made a lot more money in some other ways, through gambling, through numbers and everything else like that people liked. But he chose not. He chose the drug business and used many people in which to help to drug up his community, and he even had the Italian mafia nervous because he had so many Negroes he could put in the streets to drug his own people. I don't know how. Now I know about this intimately. I don't know how you explain that. How do you explain that in the face of this? How do you explain this? Okay, and then you want to talk about the business people in your community and what they've done. How do you explain that? How do you explain somebody doing this?
Let's go to DE Raptor. He has his hand up.
You guys going down the street that man, I came here as a little kid from Barbados. I came to New York and came to East New York. I don't know if anybody, well, Nagano know East New York.
Yes, I do.
And you know around Pitkin Avenue and
yes, I do.
Franklin and that place. I mean, I saw crack tear up that place, tear it up. I lived in Miami. I see Overtown, crack tore up that place. I lived in West Chicago and North Chicago. I saw crack tore the area around the west side of Austin, all the way down the south side. Austin, going, I mean, shoot. And I know some of the people who dealt in. We don't control our infrastructure, yes. We don't control the roads. We don't control the healthcare system. We don't control the education system, but we're in it. And one of the things that I also see is that parents, black parents, abandon their children. Black parents sent their daughters into these drug dealers' houses.
Hey, D, I want to ask you one question. Could we have controlled this thing if we wanted to? Could we have controlled our community if we wanted to?
Yes, bro. Because, like,
So that's all
I'm
I
telling
ask.
you now, I'm getting to it now. I see black parents, black mothers sent their daughters into these drug dealers and gang members' houses to get the money for them. Instead of sending their children to school. You don't see Chinese people doing that. You don't see African African, hit you up. African mother hit you upside the head. You getting up, you're behind and go to school. You can't get up in the morning and say, "Mom, I don't feel like going to school," and she said, "Okay, sweetheart." No, you better get your behind the school. You think I lived in my mother's house when I came to the USA? You think I can get up in the morning and not go to school? Shoot, my mother would have killed me. I would have been dead. Neither I nor my brothers would be alive today. We have things that we have control of, we do not use.
See, that's the big piece right there, man. When they saw guys like Frank Lucas and them being able to put thousands of guys in the street and take over, and they saw that you sat there and decided to tear your people out the frame and didn't truly take power, because white folks were ready to give in, and they saw you weren't really ready to take power, they jailed your ass. See, that's what the average guy don't want to sit here and talk about. When they saw you was sucker laid like that and could put that kind of power in the streets and did not take power because they were expecting you to do it, and you didn't, they jailed you. That's what they did. And I'm gonna leave it at that. You were supposed to take over and you did.
One of the things that I see us do in this country is that we will have the opportunity to do something on our own. And we'll go over there and we'll call the Mexican guy and say, come on and share in my my bounty. We go call the Jewish people and come on. We want to pretend like we are this great people. We are all forgiving, all beautiful, and nobody does it for us.
Let's go to was it Dr. Phoenix, because he was up next.
Yeah, special thanks to the brother Nagone. He put it in great perspective, and that was merely what I'm implying to. I have never stated that crack cocaine is, that it was not a cause as to part of our issues. But again, I think the problem is that we don't put the entire issue into context. It didn't just start with crack cocaine. I grew up in Chicago, so all the areas that D.E. Raptor was just naming, I know them very well. I had friends who lived right off of Central and Laramie, which is on the far west side. I remember when I was in my late teens, you can go on Madison Avenue, which is where, I don't know if anybody remember that very infamous HBO documentary, Pimps Up, Hoes Down. That's where they filmed it at. And back in the day, you can go there, man. It was just nothing but between the pimps and the hoes, it was crack dealers.
Knew the guy who did the documentary.
Ironic.
Mm-hmm.
And I had family members that grew up in the projects of Chicago. And
Cabrini Green.
Yeah, Cabrini Green, Robert Taylor Homes, Ida B. Wells. I mean, so I know for a fact that crack cocaine destroyed Bronzeville, the lower south side of Chicago, Bronzeville area. it destroyed it. And you know what Bronzeville looks like right now? $500,000 townhomes.
Can we say gentrification?
Yeah, that's what Bronzeville looks like now after crack cocaine destroyed it. Spent almost 3 decades destroying the area. You go there now, nothing but $500,000 townhomes.
Dr. Phoenix, you hitting it. Oh man, you're hitting it madly on the head. One of my boys, one of my fraternity brothers, we were just sitting down this past weekend. We were celebrating our 40th anniversary for crossing over the Berlin Sands. 40 years ago, I crossed. But one of the key things that he's doing with his company now, he works with a documentary company, and they're making a documentary right now on it'll be released, I think, at the end of November. I'll call my brother Keith, and then I'll get the exact date on. And I'll let you guys know when this documentary is getting ready to hit. It is a full documentary on the crack era. We had a very big talk about that on Saturday, and we sat down and talked about exactly what really hit the community and did damage. It was heroin, and then the crack epidemic hit, and that was not an accident. That was targeted for you, and that's what really did a lot of damage. And one of the biggest parts who they really targeted in this epidemic was women. So the feminization of the drug business and how crack hit women were very key in your community as well. And they go into some devastating detail to see how this really hit us. Very hard-hitting documentary. When it comes out, I'm gonna let all you guys know about it. I'm sure I'll get a free copy of this thing, and we'll be able to put it online here for us to see. I'll get that for this channel, and and it's going to be devastating. We're on it. Devastating.
Yeah,
this was a bomb. This was a nuke, and it was designed for you.
Yeah, and I guess my thing about the crack cocaine era is that, yeah, although drugs were certainly present in Black society, long before then, again, as I said earlier, it was the crack cocaine era where they found ways to criminalize Black folks for it. Historically, heroin has always kind of been a drug that crossed racial and ethnic lines. It wasn't just Black folks doing it. Obviously, it's always been white folks addicted to it as well. But again, crack cocaine, Black people and specifically Black men became the face of that.
And a lot of Black women got caught. It was the family destroyer. You had many family destroyers coming in, and then on top of that, you had your war on poverty that was there, and Black men out of the home. People don't understand the level of attack that came out, and that's why you had some very key Black civil rights groups that came out. And I'm not talking about the NAACP in the urban league. I ain't talking about them. All right. I'm talking about other groups that were smaller but very effective in actually trying to sue the CIA and FBI for bringing drugs into your community. So we have fought against that on some very sophisticated levels and called these guys out, and they ran screaming from it, trying to hide and say all the kind of things like that. But your government, in many respects, and I must say it here, and I don't care what anybody says, towards our community has been Beelzebub, has been the devil. And I'm going to call it out. Our government has been the devil when it has come to our community. Beelzebub. That Beelzebub has been introduced in our community by way of our government. And we have to fight against that and speak about that and come down very hard on people inside our community who put this ethic out there that this is something good.
Brother, I'm a firm believer in the fact that, before we can even begin to tackle issues of dealing with white supremacy, we definitely have to clean our own ranks. We cannot possibly begin to think that we're going to wage a war or fight against a group of an organized entity with virtually unlimited resources with a group that's as disorganized as we are. I don't believe that can ever happen. With that said, Mike V said it earlier, this is, you have in other countries where folks had a zero tolerance policy for drug dealers, for their own, destroying their own. There were summary executions in the street. And I'm not saying we need to go to those extremes, but we cannot go into the 21st century glorifying the same clowns that destroyed the community to begin with. We can't do that.
We cannot.
Let's go to Gabe A.
Hey, yeah, I know this is like the chopping it up type of section. I think before I had stepped away for a second. I think Cyberdyne, the 7th, I think he had something to say about that hardware hack. Did he say something about it, or did you say something about it?
No, he didn't get into it. He was going to say something about it, but he didn't get into it.
Oh, okay. Did he want to say something about it?
I don't know if you.
No, I deferred. No, I deferred. I think we kind of covered it where we are. But I did have a question for Doc Phoenix though, and to everyone else. So, a lot of people said Bill Cosby, his ending really has a lot to do with his early beginnings on quote unquote airing the dirty laundry in the Black community. And we all know that whenever we have one of us within our community who stands up and calls out the boo-boo, we get a planetary tidal wave against those individuals who call out the fuckery. And so my question, Doc, to you or anyone else, primarily you, and then what you think, Nagan as well, is do you agree that at some point the thinking man, such as ourselves and like other like-minded men, there is going to be an inevitable collide with the fool, the non-thinking man, the guy who's lifted up in the community to this day and who's, in my eyes, responsible for the destruction? And B, what do you think incipiently should be a literal response to people who are currently working the destruction of the community?
I think to your first question, I think that's already happening. Again, I think Mike V and Lottie's brothers have been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. I haven't been a part of those conversations, unfortunately. But again, I think, this is playing out online. And I think this is going to be the battleground and has been a battleground for some time, where you're seeing the clash between thinking, independent-minded Black men, the intelligentsia wing of Black society and Black male society, versus these other guys. I think that's already playing out. To your earlier statement about Bill Cosby, I get why people say that, but here's the problem. As much as people may not like Bill Cosby, Black society owes him a debt of gratitude, because if it wasn't for him, HBCUs would have never came into their own in the 90s. He did one show that put HBCUs on the map. People have always known about them, but it did not become trendy. It did not become popular. It did not become a source of pride until he made A Different World.
Bill Cosby put close to $100 million into the HBCUs. And
they all betrayed him. I was on the campus of Morehouse College last summer. And you know what I saw I didn't even get out the car. I didn't even take a good 10 steps outside the car. First thing I get out, see white males on campus, Black females chasing behind them. That's what I saw. Very first thing. That's what's happening at your HBCUs right now. Very same HBCUs yanked this honorary doctorates, all of this. But again, Morehouse is the same college where the president had to issue a memo a few years ago, telling the males on campus to stop wearing dresses and high heels. But yet, problems that we face, again, we're facing a significant brain drain in Black society. And this goes to the earlier conversation about why is that? We don't invest in the young people. We don't teach them what they need to be successful in the 21st century. The idea that you're going to create, if entrepreneurship and these startups are going to be the incubators for Black society in the 21st century, this has to start young. This doesn't start the moment you walk on the college campus. This starts when you're 4 years old. And that's something that we have fundamentally failed at. And as much as we love to blame white supremacy, you cannot blame white supremacy for that. That is a fundamental failure of Black society to one, fundamental failure of Black womanhood to be good mothers, and a fundamental failure of Black men to be good fathers, to provide direction and leadership to young people, to give them a purpose.
We had so many fathers over the last 2 generations who've been knocked out of the box, out of the game in many ways, through drugs and mass incarceration and other things. We've had a lot of issues. It's amazing that we are where we are with some of the immense assaults that have come about. We're in a unique period right now where we can take a tremendous advantage. You got white America teetering like there's no teetering. As much as people want to say, yes, you have a very strong, super wealthy class, you have a lot of others who are teetering. We just got back to the fundamentals of coalescing dollars, taking over our schools and our education, and really building our neighborhoods up strong the way we had them. Not that our neighborhoods were so great, but we had neighborhoods that were very, very, very legitimate. And we still have some now. But if we just got back to the fundamentals, we could turn this thing around in a generation. And I mean, really turn this around. You have other Black immigrants coming here to this country, Nigerians and so forth, who are doing very well, who would integrate seamlessly into that as well, and then open up a much broader fantasy to Africa and so forth, where we could really take advantage. See, it's right there. It's right at our fingertips. It's just a mindset that we don't have. And to me, it's about trying to kill some of this mindset and some of the crazy things that are being said. It needs to be blasted from the surface of the earth with respect to some of the stuff that's being said.
Let's go to brother.
Blasted.
Yeah, let's go to Brother Eli. He has his hand up. I think Eli's gone now.
Well, can I just
Mike,
really quick
you understand what I'm saying?
I'm still here. I'm still here. I had to hit the mute button. Now, I'm pretty much on the same page with what Nagone just said. One thing that I was trying to look into is when we talk about changing the mindset of our people, is what we can do with regards to that, like what can be instituted. That's the major thing, because it seems like those who have the ways and means are just not interested. You know, those who have the financial dollars to really set things off are really not interested in the Black community. They're more focused on their own thing, or they're more focused on the American community at large, and they're not thinking along the lines of what we're talking about right now. So, and like Nagone was just saying, and this is what the things that we can take advantage of right now with regards to the internet. We can reach people in the blink of an eye. You can put up a Facebook ad and reach all kinds of people. We could do things that we never could do before. So I'm hoping that we can all put our minds together and start thinking of ways that we can, start changing what programs or whatever we could come up with to help change the mindset of our people and get us all on the same page. Because right now, like I always say, like I was saying, there is no we right now. We're a bunch of scattered individuals right now. There has to be something done to bring us together. Because otherwise, we just gonna be complaining saying Black people ain't shit for the next 20 years. But if it's nothing done to bring us together, then the situation not gonna change.
All right, let's go to DE Raptor. He has his hand up. He'll be the last one. I think DE Raptor is eating his porridge right now.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Can you imagine that? I was intense. I'm listening so much that I was here listening. I forgot to unmute myself. Anyway, to reply to my brother Cyberdyne, so we are in that conflict already, and you can see here if you look at the manuscript, you will see that the divide is already there. That you have, for instance, like my brother mentioned O'Shea tonight, he came out and made a statement we are responsible. Then you have the Black Brain Trust, who said, look, we are responsible for this, but here are some of the tools that you can use to change the situation you're in. So we are already in that war or conflict, and we are already changing it. You don't see there is a we. My brother Eli says you don't see us getting together, but though you may not see it, when you start looking at you're looking at everybody, and you see it might appear that people are going their own way. But for instance, on the Black Brain Trust, the Black Brain Trust wasn't around 5 years ago. But while we don't have 30,000 subscribers, it's growing. So people are coming. They hear about it and they're coming. And some of the things that we can do is like we're gathering men of like minds together. You got Dr. Phoenix here, his knowledge in the medical field and other areas. Nagon, businessman, Mike, technocrat. Me, I just add my little thing in, but I'm an older guy. You guys are the young generation. You guys are the ones who are supposed to be taking over now and setting the standard. Even if my generation didn't do too much, you guys got to pick up what little we did. Add your touch to it and go and take it to where you want to go. And then you got to teach your children to take over from you and take it where they want to go. We got to choose the battles that we fight. We can't fight everyone every day. We got to choose the ones that we're going to fight. Right now, we got to choose. Right now, for me, is about education and economics. Educating our people. We got to learn how to read. We got to learn how to comprehend. And then we got to put that to work to improve our economic situation. We got to put in the time necessary to fight these battles. And we know that it's not going. We took almost 400 years, more than 400 years to get where we at right now. It took them 400 years to get us into this position. It's not going to take us 1 year to get out, but we got to be able to put the time in. We got to tell ourselves, look, however long I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be in it. And until we do that, when we start doing that and our children see us doing something, or the younger generation, you guys, then you're going to say, you know what? Man, I can do that too. And that's what you got to do. So we're in it. Just we got to stay with the program, our program, not somebody else, not the one somebody else gave us. The program that we set up for ourselves. And we got to take that program, run with it, and teach our children to pick up where we left off and run with it.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I think.
One thing I would say is agreed.
Yeah. The brother D said all that needs to be said in that regard.
Yeah, I didn't even anticipate us going down this path, man. Brother Eli took us down this path, but with his comments in the chat. I just want to address this one comment here, man, from Iman Perry. Y'all gonna talk about that DJ Kid situation. If you look at the title of the hangout of the live stream, it says Space and Technology, Africa's first smartphone has arrived. I'd be interested in knowing what goes through, some people's heads when they ask questions in the chat.
Was DJ Kid the first user with his phone?
maybe he's a kid who's a DJ. I don't know.
Like I just said it. We need to educate our people to comprehend. I mean, he didn't read what we were talking about.
Didn't care about what we were talking
You know what I'm saying? He's going his own way, or somebody sent him in there to derail the conversation.
I mean,
plenty of people talking about it, man. Like we don't need to spend our time. There's plenty of people talking about it.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to choose their battles. Some people are going to fight that fight. We got to fight this fight. We can't be derailed from this fight. This fight is very important to our community.
I think this just comes down to the fact that a lot of folks see information that gets disseminated on programs like this as just merely entertainment. You know, since this story broke, this has pretty much been the talk of Black YouTube, if you will. This just comes down to an entertainment factor. And unfortunately, for a lot of Black men, entertainment is the currency.
He said, y'all was talking about Black women chasing white. He said y'all was talking about Black women chasing white men on HBCU campuses. We actually wasn't talking about it.
It was a one-off comment, dude.
Let me say something real quick, Mike, if I can.
Go ahead.
So, I see we got the brother there, and he's, trying to drag us off in this foolery. Check this out, Iman.
It's benign. It's benign. You can tell by his comment. His last comment is benign.
Yeah, it's just like the last brother said. It's yeah, we at a point where it's time. It's definitely time, and yeah, it's like I think Dee said, everybody's gonna have some type of contribution that this thing is gonna begin to really mold and take shape, and there's just gonna come a point in time where just certain things are gonna be unavoidable. I think, and I'll be forthright and be honest. There has to be a cutting away. There has to be a cutting away. Of foolishness, and by no means, I think somebody said it in a couple other panels. I think I watched one. We have to execute with extreme prejudice, but that there definitely has to be a cutting away of those who are clear detractors versus those who we have a goal, we have a purpose to enlighten, to change the tone of this thing, on very clear and serious terms, and I think that once we start to see, we're probably gonna start seeing it. There's gonna be a cutting away, and there's gonna be some people out there who have YouTube channels. We're gonna have to disown some of those people, might even have to name drop and just call it what it is. For those who out there spitting that poison, they talking foolery, they're talking nonsense. Their initiatives aren't forward thinking. And I double down on my statement and go behind that to say, if it comes to resources, I'm not a millionaire, but a lot of the other detractors out there that's spewing and taking us backwards, they sure ain't gonna put no resources behind anything that has any substance. That has any substance to it to get us moving in some type of direction. I have brothers down there in Atlanta. We talk about this, even before I was lucky enough to find you guys at the Brain Trust. It's people out there that's been dreaming. They can't wait for the opportunity to have some type of turnaround. But we're gonna have to go and take it. I think what they say, the Pookies and Ray Rays are effective because they go and they take stuff. Well, hey, that's cool. We're gonna have to just go and just take it, and it is what it is. So I close with that.
Good note to close on. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button as you come in. If you've not already hit we got a down. We got a dislike already. Then, yeah, share the video if possible, man. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab today. Also, if you want IT mentorship, we offer IT mentorship here if you're trying to get into IT, and we offer IT coaching for those trying to transition from one IT role to another. We can actually help you out with that. And we do resume evaluations as well. So if you have any needs of those services and that advisory, drop your email at the end of this live stream into the comment section. We'll get back in touch with you. Peace and shalom.